Chapter 587. The Immortal's cave under the banyan tree was full of spiritual power, and the effect of cultivating inside was many times better than cultivating outside. The monsters were not fools. After the spiritual wisdom was opened and they reached the foundation stage, they would basically be brought into the Immortal's cave by their respective predecessors. This 10,000 trees forest was rich in resources and there were many rare materials. In a mountainous area not far from the forest, there were several spirit stone mines. Some monsters that drilled into the ground mined spirit stones there and got the qualification to enter the Immortal's cave. Of course, materials could also be exchanged for spirit stones. All transactions were like the market in the human world. Even the Golden Eagle told Yang Chen that in the Immortal's cave there was a large market, and there were many shops where you could buy anything you wanted. The Golden Eagle came out this time, intending to find some materials to exchange for spirit stones, but on the way back, he met Yang Chen. At first, he thought that Yang Chen was a human, so he broke out with hostility. Later, he found that Yang Chen was a calf, so he restrained himself. Yang Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly. Except for the pair of horns in his sea of consciousness, where did he look like a monster? But this was also good, it saved him a lot of trouble. Along the way, Yang Chen communicated with the Golden Eagle with his thoughts and learned everything in the Immortal's cave. The more he learned, the more surprised Yang Chen was. In the banyan tree Immortal's cave, it had almost developed into a sect that was no different from the human Tao sections. The difference was that all the disciples were monster cultivators, and there was no clear indication that everyone was from the same sect. But to the outside, everyone admitted that they were from the 10,000 trees forest. The two Deshang stage predecessors were in charge of the rules and all the resources of the Immortal's cave, and there were many Yuanying stage predecessors who were also in charge of various aspects of the Immortal's cave. There were secret arts left by the predecessors in the Immortal's cave, which were simply tailor-made cultivation secret arts for the monster cultivators. The same 5 elements of gold, wood, water, fire and earth were complete, and there were various alchemy and refining technique. Although it was not as strict as the organization of the major sects, it was already a small monster cultivator sect. From this point of view, the monster cultivators of the 10,000 trees forest were obviously at a higher starting point than other monster cultivators. It must be known that guys like Shi Kuei and Xie Sha did not have a systematic method for them to practice. They all followed their instincts. Later, after they met Yang Chen, they got some cultivation pointers. On the other hand, the demon cultivators here had systematic cultivation methods since the awakening of spiritual wisdom. Their overall strength was much stronger than those on the demon-beast plane. During the communication, Yang Chen also discovered that the Golden Eagle was not surprised that Yang Chen was in a human form. It seemed that there were a lot of humanoid monster cultivators in the cave. He didn't know if they cultivated the transformation art that Yang Chen obtained from the spiritual realm or if they had inherited something else. There were many doubts that Yang Chen wanted to know, especially the vein of the first wood true essence, which was the top priority. However, this was obviously not the time to ask, so Yang Chen suppressed his curiosity. Anyway, he would soon arrive at the cave residence to see it with his own eyes, so Yang Chen might as well wait a little longer. However, what surprised Yang Chen was that he thought he would arrive soon, but the Golden Eagle flew for 2 days, a full distance of thousands of miles, and then began to slowly descend. Yang Chen also finally found a huge banyan tree. Yang Chen didn't know how to describe this tree. If it weren't for Yang Chen knowing that the banyan tree had always had the characteristic of a single tree, he would definitely think that he had come to a vast banyan forest. A banyan tree, with countless pillar roots, occupied the land of hundreds of miles around it tightly. Not to mention the trunk, just the aerial roots, the thinnest was also thick. As for the trunk located in the center, it was simply a huge circular castle, directly occupying an area of several miles. Yang Chen didn't know how many years this big banyan tree had grown, and he didn't know why this big banyan tree had not become a tree demon after so many years. Anyway, the predecessor said that the Immortal's cave was under the banyan tree. It must be referring to this tree. The golden eagle's wings closed, and it quickly shuttled over the canopy. Its huge figure was so small against the huge banyan tree. As for Yang Chen on his back, it was like a drop in the ocean. When approaching the canopy, the golden eagle's body suddenly flashed with golden light, and then Yang Chen found that he and the golden eagle had come to a huge archway. The huge body of the golden eagle, in such a moment, became the same as Yang Chen, and the shape also changed. However, his body was a human body, but his head was the head of the golden eagle. Under the archway there were two monster cultivators sitting. They were also human bodies, one with a tiger head and the other with a bull head. Both of them were in the Jedon realm. In front of the two, there were two tables, as if they were working. "There is a newcomer, it is your fellow sect member." The golden eagle screamed at the bullhead. It was introduced by Xian He outside. The eagle's mouth made a human voice. It felt very strange. "Oh!" The bull head was stunned, and also made a human voice in his mouth, and a spiritual sense passed over. As soon as the spiritual sense of Yang Chen touched, he immediately noticed Yang Chen's horns. The corner of his mouth cracked, and a strange smile appeared on the bull's face. "This time I want to practice for a year." The golden eagle had already done many procedures, and directly took out a lot of low-grade spirit stones and a few middle-grade spirit stones and handed them to the tiger head. After the tiger head weighed it, he gave the golden eagle a jade card. The golden eagle reached out and took it, then turned to Yang Chen and explained, "This card is the identity to enter the Immortal's cave. Without this card you can't enter. The time is recorded on the card, and when the time is up, it will be automatically sent out." Yang Chen also learned from the golden eagle and took out a lot of low-grade spirit stones. However, he was not as stingy as the golden eagle, and directly booked a period of 10 years. "I have heard from Senior Xian He about this place for a long time, and I especially saved a lot of spirit stones to come here and practice well," Yang Chen explained while paying the spirit stones. It sounded that this reason was impeccable. The tiger head and the bull head did not think too much about it, but according to the rules, they gave Yang Chen the same jade card. "You should go in and see if there is a suitable cultivation method for you." The bull head felt that he was a senior of the same sect, and he was very enthusiastic to give advice. "When I finish my duty, you can come to me if you need anything, I will take you around." Of course, Yang Chen was very grateful for such enthusiasm. After thanking him all the way, Yang Chen followed the golden eagle and walked into the archway, along the road, and walked inside. The people who come here for the first time will definitely be surprised. I won't say much, so as not to spoil your mood. After the golden eagle said enthusiastically, he hurried a few steps and ran to the front. "You take your time, I will go first." Chapter 588. Turning a corner, a huge city suddenly appeared in front of Yang Chen. The Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave was already a very powerful Immortal's Cave, but compared with the current Immortal's Cave, it was like heaven and earth. Yang Chen finally understood why the old banyan tree had never opened its spiritual wisdom and became a tree demon. This city was built on the trunk of a huge banyan tree. The outside was obviously just the form, the real essence was still here, and it was the defendant who refined it into a huge city. It was not known how many generations of sacrificial refinement had passed before and after. This city had become a giant. It directly covered a radius of hundreds of miles, much larger than any human city that Yang Chen had ever seen. Even compared with some big sects, it was not much worse. In his previous life, Yang Chen did not have much contact with the monster cultivators. Naturally, this was also related to Yang Chen's origin. Occasionally, he met some powerful monster cultivators in the spiritual world and exchanged some things, such as the transformation secret art and so on, but he never asked the origin of the other party. For their own origin, the monster cultivators paid much more attention than the cultivators. Once people knew their origin, they might be targeted to deal with it, and it was impossible to guard against it. The monster cultivators in the spiritual world rarely revealed their origin. As for the monster cultivators who ascended to the immortal world and were born in the 10,000 Trees forest, they may also know that their ancestors were beheaded by the current Jade Emperor of the Heavenly Court, and they did not dare to expose their origin at will. Therefore, Yang Chen had never heard of the 10,000 Trees forest in his previous life. Standing here, Yang Chen found that he still underestimated the monster cultivators. He always thought that the monster cultivators relied on their instincts to cultivate, but he did not expect that there was such a huge systematic monster cultivator city. This was obviously a space that had been opened up in the body of the great banyan tree. Countless demon cultivators lived in this huge city like humans, bustling with activity. There were monster cultivators with various monster beast heads everywhere, and occasionally there were a few human beings passing by. No wonder the golden eagle was not surprised by Yang Chen's human form, but it turned out to be common. It was unknown where the golden eagle had gone, but Yang Chen estimated that it must have returned to its home in this city. After standing in the same place for a while, Yang Chen was no longer so surprised, nor was he so sluggish. He walked along the road under his feet and entered the city. After coming in, Yang Chen did not directly look for the first wood true essence without saying anything, but slowly walked along the main road, slowly observed, and slowly familiarized himself with the whole city. Although the cave looked like a city, Yang Chen soon discovered that the distribution of spiritual power in the city was uneven. The higher one was, the denser the spiritual power seemed to be, and most of the demonic cultivators seemed to live in the lowest city. The spirit stones paid by the decorated archway were only the cost of entering and staying in the city. If one wanted to cultivate here, they would have to pay additional spirit stones to rent a cultivation room. The most ordinary room was naturally the one on the lowest floor. The higher the level, the higher the fee. The cost of the lowest floor per day was 1 or 2 low-grade spirit stones, which did not seem to be a lot. Every time one went up, the spiritual power would be several times stronger, but the cost would also increase. It was 10 times more than the next level, and the highest level was said to consume a gene of middle-grade spirit stones every day. After a day, Yang Chen found the big market mentioned by the Golden Eagle. It was indeed a big market, even bigger than the market in Chunyang Palace. There were many shops, no less than hundreds of them, and there were many people who set up separate stalls. All kinds of materials, medicinal pills, and even cultivation methods, etc., could be found here. At a glance, there were many materials that were rare among human cultivators, but unexpectedly, they were everywhere here. No wonder the cultivators had always said that the monster's plane was rich in products. Just the small stalls here could make people of a big sect ashamed to death, not to mention the things in those big shops. Unfortunately, without the introduction of the monster race, the cultivators could never enter this immortal's cave. And these things would never be able to circulate normally with the cultivators. Yang Chen was very curious. In his previous life, there were also people who wandered in the monster's plane. Even in this life, Yang Chen also pointed Dao Ba to the monster's plane. Although he also got a lot of materials, no one really entered the core world of this monster's plane. Except for the current Yang Chen. In his previous life, the monster's plane did not have any outstanding and powerful experts, and there were no such masters in Yang Chen's memory. On the contrary, the demon continent was full of powerful masters. Could it be that when the monster cultivators here reached a certain level, they would go to the demon continent? These were unsolved mysteries, and Yang Chen had no answers. Now that he had the opportunity to stand in this city, maybe Yang Chen could find these answers, maybe not. Originally, when Yang Chen came here, He was looking for the vein of first wood true essence left by the predecessor, but now Yang Chen had changed his mind. The first wood true essence still had to be searched, but there were so many precious materials and various cultivation methods. Since Yang Chen had come here, if he did not take the opportunity to plunder, then he would not be Yang Chen. It was also necessary to plunder all the good things here and make a big fortune, and it would not be in vain to come here. The Golden Eagle had long gone to an unknown place, and Yang Chen did not want to look for the ox head on the other side of the archway. After finding the market, Yang Chen did not plan to do anything for the time being. No matter what his plan was, he had to walk around the city first. Just walking around the whole city, it took Yang Chen almost 5 days, and he only looked at it once. He had not gone in to carefully observe what he was interested in. 5 days later, Yang Chen also seemed to be familiar with some of the rules in this city. Although it was a monster beast, it was not allowed to kill people here. They could compete in private and fight, but they could not kill people. Once it was found out, the person who did it would be killed by the management of the city. This was the iron law, and it must not be violated. If he wanted to kill people, he could do so after he went out. After understanding the rules, Yang Chen was like an ordinary monster cultivator. He paid the spirit stones in the management office, rented a room at the bottom, received the jade key to enter the room, and settled himself down first. Now Yang Chen looked like a newcomer who had just arrived. After understanding the rules of the city, he began to cultivate. It was not surprising at all, it was unremarkable, and no one would pay much attention to Yang Chen. After settling all this, Yang Chen sat in his room and began to ponder. There was a restriction in the room, and without the jade key, others could not enter at all. Even if the door could be broken by force, no one dared to be so casual. Relatively speaking, it was still safe. Next, Yang Chen began to worry. This first would true essence in the end? Chapter 589. It was almost impossible to find a vein of the first would true essence in such a huge city without being discovered by others. Not to mention that almost all the people here had opened their spiritual wisdom, and at least had a foundation stage cultivation base. The 2 Deshang stage masters who were in charge of the city's rules were not easy to deal with. Moreover, Yang Chen was not sure whether they had found the vein of the first wood true essence. Now, whether it was still there, everything needed to be explored by Yang Chen himself. It was impossible to come here and not cultivate. He would definitely be seen by others. However, cultivating the great yin and yang 5 elements secret art was not a good idea. The spiritual power here was controlled by someone. Once it was discovered that Yang Chen was not a monster cultivator, he would definitely not be able to eat it. This was not Chunyang Palace, where Yang Chen could retreat and not be afraid of people peeping at him. It was not his own territory. Yang Chen, of course, had to be careful in every step. It was better to be safe than sorry, this was an everlasting truth. However, the yellow turban strongman body refining technique was very suitable for Yang Chen to cultivate boldly. First, this kind of body refining technique was completely different from the cultivation system of the cultivators. Second, the body refining technique could be stopped at any time without worrying about being disturbed during the cultivation process. If there was an emergency, Yang Chen could also cope with it. However, since he had come to a city of monster cultivators, it was necessary for Yang Chen to see if the cultivation methods of these monster cultivators had formed a system. Anyway, he was now under the guise of a monster cultivator outside. He came here to refine his cultivation, and it was very normal to buy a cultivation method. Yang Chen's figure soon appeared in the huge market. This time, Yang Chen no longer looked at the flowers on horseback, but began to stroll carefully. First, he started from the places where the stalls were set up. These monster cultivators who set up the stalls were naturally because if they sold the things they sold to those big merchants, they would inevitably be pressured by others. It was better to directly make a profit here. Of course, since it was a stall, it was impossible to be more expensive than those big shops, otherwise no one would buy here. In short, whether it was the scattered buyers or the buyers, they would still be able to get some small benefits from the stalls. Yang Chen looked through the items one by one. Even though there were many items that could not be produced in the Chinese plains, as long as Yang Chen brought them to the Chinese plains, he would be able to earn at least double the profit. However, Yang Chen couldn't be too excessive. Sometimes, being rich and overbearing was indeed very impressive, but if he were to act rich and overbearing in front of a group of bandits, then it wouldn't be showing off, but it would be foolish. Demon cultivators were still demon cultivators. Even if they had a seemingly strict organization to manage them, the mentality of the strong preying on the weak in their bones had not changed much. At this point, Yang Chen had seen it countless times in his previous life. If Yang Chen now had the cultivation base of the Yuanying stage, then Yang Chen would never be so careful, but he was currently only in the early Jedan stage, and had just condensed his Dan. He did not want to destroy the immortal beheading blade that was being tempered. Naturally, it was better not to be so eye-catching. However, even if Yang Chen was so cautious, he was still stared at by some people. The last time Yang Chen walked around, he basically just glanced here and left. He did not stay much, so naturally he would not attract the attention of others. But this time, Yang Chen was planning to get some good things. He stayed a little longer and soon someone came in contact. Newcomer. At first glance, a guy who looked like a loafer appeared in front of Yang Chen. He had a wolf's head and his cultivation was not high. He was only a little higher than Yang Chen, the middle stage of the Jedan stage. When he spoke, he asked in a condescending tone, accompanied by a scrutinizing gaze and a fat sheep coming to the door. Everyone here was very disciplined. No one released their spiritual awareness, unless it was to explore the interior of something, but it was limited to the things in their hands, and their spiritual awareness could not be released. Otherwise, no matter which monster cultivator the spiritual awareness explored, it would be regarded as a provocation. In fact, this rule was the same in the cultivator's market. At any time, without the permission of others, it was a provocation to explore the other party with spiritual awareness. Unless it was in the middle of a battle, or when the cultivation base was unusually high. Yang Chen did not open his spiritual awareness, but it did not mean that he did not know the movements around him. Yang Chen had released a little of the three purities' secret art's powerful spiritual awareness. However, it did not cover a large area, only 100 feet, so as not to be noticed by the experts. There were different races around, and Yang Chen had to be careful. When the other party just approached, Yang Chen had already noticed it. And it was not just one person who came, there were 4 more around. 2 of them were in the late stage of the foundation stage, 1 was in the late stage of the Jedan stage, and the remaining 1 was in the early stage of the Yuanying stage. Looking at the tone of the other party, Yang Chen knew that this must be the overbearing guy in the market, otherwise the surrounding stall owners and buyers would not have a look of avoidance. I just came a few days ago, and came to broaden my horizons. Yang Chen did not conceal the fact that he had just arrived. These guys' eyes were very sharp, and it was impossible to pretend to be a regular customer. There are rules for newcomers to come here. There was a burst of laughter in the wolf's mouth, and he took 2 steps closer, almost at the same time as Yang Chen. The guy with the wolf head looked at the things that Yang Chen had just stared at on the stall, and suddenly said to the stall owner, "Why don't you talk to him?" The stall owner was just a chicken-head monster cultivator in the late stage of the foundation stage, and he did not dare to provoke this guy at all. He smiled and was about to speak, but Yang Chen suddenly took the lead. "Since there are rules, then I will trouble this big brother to talk to me personally." As he said this, Yang Chen seemed to be very intimate with the shoulder of the wolf head, as if they were side by side. The hand on the other's shoulder was pinching the other's shoulder blade, and he said with a smile. The opposite stall owner was like an amnesty. This kind of offending people, if he was forced by the wolf head to do it, it would definitely make Yang Chun hate him. Now that Yang Chun took the initiative to let the wolf head introduce himself, it was not his business, and he was also happy to watch the excitement. However, what was strange was that the wolf head, who had always been arrogant in the market, looked very strange at the moment. He didn't know why, but the wolf head suddenly changed his face, and his head was sweating. Even if there was thick hair on the wolf head, it could not stop the sweat from oozing out. What was going on? A monster cultivator of the Jedon stage would actually sweat inexplicably? But no one around saw any problems. They just stared at Yang Chun and the wolf head, and seemed to be wondering how this little overlord would be so out of control. Chapter 590. The wolf head was secretly complaining in his heart at the moment. Yang Chun casually put his hand on his shoulder, and suddenly it felt like a mountain was pressing on his body. The huge pressure directly made him unable to say a word, and he could only use the strength of his whole body to resist the pressure of the mountain. And the shoulder blade that was pinched by Yang Chen's hand, there was a burst of breaking sound, as if the whole shoulder blade would be shattered in the next moment. All the monster power in the whole body, he didn't know why, but a trace of it could not burst out, it seemed to be firmly locked by something. At this moment, not to mention using the monster power to fight back, even moving any part of the body had become a luxury. The wolf head had no doubt that as long as Yang Chun was willing, he would be dead on the spot in the next moment. There was no accident. Even if someone rescued him, it was estimated that only a body could be taken back. Standing in the same place, the cold sweat of the wolf head gurgled down, and it did not stop. The opposite stall owner had been completely sluggish. He was stupid, and he understood that now the wolf head must have been controlled by Yang Chun. Here, what are the rules? Yang Chun seemed to be afraid that the wolf head did not hear clearly, and at a close distance, he repeated his question again. Fortunately, Yang Chun did not carry out the next step. After asking the question, he didn't know why, but the wolf head felt that the pressure on his face was relieved, and then he found that he had the ability to speak again. Let him go. Otherwise, I will move your head. There was a loud shout from the side, but the leopard head master of the Yuanying stage had noticed that something was wrong and rushed over. It was just that his younger brother was in the hands of Yang Chun, and he did not dare to act rashly. He just threatened Yang Chun. Oh! Yang Chun turned back very strangely and asked in a surprised tone, "Can you kill people here?" His words were naturally for the wolf head to explain. After he walked around the city for a few days, he thought that he couldn't kill people here, but the other party actually said that he would move his head, which suddenly made Yang Chun a little confused. Could it be that the rules here were not so strict? No. You can't kill people here. The wolf head almost wanted to cry. His own life was always in the hands of Yang Chun. If he could be killed, wouldn't he be the first to play? Even if I can't kill you, I can still cripple you. The Yuanying stage master was stunned, then immediately realized that his younger brother's life was in the hands of Yang Chun, and his tone suddenly changed and he threatened again. You want to cripple me? Yang Chun's expression suddenly darkened. His smiling face suddenly turned frosty. I can't kill him, but I can cripple him, right? When the Yuanying stage master saw the sudden change in Yang Chun's face, he thought that Yang Chun had scruples and smiled coldly. Of course, do you see the guy over there? As he spoke, he pointed to the side and threatened again, if you don't want to become like him, then hand over all your valuables. Following his finger, Yang Chun saw that at the edge of the market stall, there was a goat curled up in the corner. Although the body was huge, it maintained its body. He thought that he had not cultivated anything like the transformation secret art, but now that he took a closer look, Yang Chun suddenly understood. The goat's cultivation base was simply abolished. Although the spiritual wisdom was thrown away, now it was only at the level of the qi refining stage. It was thrown there, it was estimated that it was used to warn others. It turns out to be like this. Yang Chen breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he could let people kill him, it would be simple. With a wave of his hand, the wolf head flew directly toward the Yuanying stage master. The other party saw his younger brother suddenly flying over, stretched out his hand, and immediately caught the wolf head in his hand. Yang Chen was so obedient that he let go of the people. The Yuanying stage master's face suddenly showed a grin. You are sensible, but my brother is not bullied. He had never seen such a stupid guy. Did he really think that, if he let go of the people, he could let him go? However, as soon as his voice fell, his stomach was heavily punched. This punch, with an unparalleled force, went straight through the chest and abdomen, and with a bang, the Yuanying stage master was sent flying. All the internal organs trembled under the pain of this punch, and his stomach was like a tumbling sea. The Yuanying stage master had never suffered such pain in his life, and even his intestines would twitch in pain. Don't mention any reaction, he couldn't even scream. Even his lungs were in pain and he couldn't breathe, let alone make a sound. The people in the market were stunned as they watched Yang Chen throw the wolf head over there, then he rushed up and punched the Yuanying stage master. A series of actions, even before the person could react. The person had already been sent flying. However, this was only the beginning. The Yuanying stage master was still in the air, and everyone saw Yang Chen jump high, with the whistling sound of the wind. The whip leg, from top to bottom, slammed on the Yuanying stage master's body. Boom! The body of the Yuanying stage master, like a cannonball, directly smashed into the ground. The extremely hard ground was smashed into a deep pit that was almost the same as the outline of the Yuanying stage master. Almost all the people around had the same expression. They were stunned, their mouths were wide open, and they couldn't believe what they saw in front of them. The Yuanying stage master, who was high in their eyes and could be killed at any time, at this moment, was like a dead fish. His eyes turned white, and his body was twitching. There was no other movement. Don't talk about fighting back. Standing up was an unattainable thing. This was not over. Yang Chen fell lightly from the air. He stretched out his hand and pulled out the Yuanying stage master in the deep pit and held him in his hand. At this time, the Yuanying stage master had almost fainted. His head was hanging softly on the side, and he could only exhale. It's okay to abolish people, this rule is really good. Yang Chen muttered very casually. His voice was not loud, but the people around him heard it clearly. When they heard Yang Chen's words, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Looking at Yang Chen, it was as if they were looking at a devil. Boom! Yang Chen punched again and hit the lower abdomen of the Yuanying stage master. Kacha, a clear cracking sound came to everyone's ears. With this cracking sound, the shape of the guy Yang Chen was carrying also began to change rapidly. In a blink of an eye, a Yuanying stage master with a leopard head turned into a huge leopard, more than 100 feet long, but it was about the size of the goat over there. Throwing the leopard next to the goat, Yang Chen clapped his hands and seemed to want to get rid of the dust on his hands. There was also a dissatisfied voice in his mouth. I hate others who dominate. In our area, who dares? Chapter 591. When these words fell into the ears of the guys around them, almost all of them were full of black lines. Who dares? Certainly no one dares. You are the one who dominates. Directly smashing the demon core of a master of the middle Yuanying stage and abolishing his whole cultivation base. Such a powerful guy, they have never seen it before. Along with the leopard of the Yuanying stage, there was also a guy of the late Jedon stage. As soon as he saw his own people being beaten by Yang Chen, he didn't think about it and rushed up. It just so happened that Yang Chen had just thrown the leopard aside and just finished that sentence. The guy of the late Jedon stage wanted to stop, but it was too late. Seeing that Yang Chen was almost unprepared, he suddenly felt that the opportunity was great. His fingers curled, and the 10 nails suddenly popped out more than a foot long, like 10 sharp daggers, grabbing toward Yang Chen's chest. Ding ding ding, Yang Chen's body made a clanking sound. The scene of Yang Chen being disemboweled in everyone's expectation did not happen. The 10 nails stopped on Yang Chen's chest, but it seemed to be stuck in a steel wall, stopping on the surface of the skin, and could no longer go in. The Jedon stage master who sneak attacked was grabbed by the neck by Yang Chen and held in the air with one hand. As Yang Chen's big hand tightened a little, the legs hanging in the air began to beat constantly, and his hands returned to protect, trying in vain to open the big hand that was grabbing his neck. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, Yang Chen's hand was like a steel cast iron, and it didn't move at all. The long nails madly slashed on Yang Chen's bare arm, making a clanking sound, but not even a white mark was left. Seeing that the guy who was caught by Yang Chen had already rolled his eyes, exhaling more than he inhaled. If you dare to move your feet again, I will let you taste what it feels like to have no feet. In such a situation, the wolf head who had just climbed up from the ground did not dare to stay, and he wanted to slip away. Yang Chen said coldly as if he had eyes on the back of his head. The wolf head seemed to be frozen on the spot, maintaining the posture of one foot to take a step, not daring to move. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his whole body was covered in sweat. It was very light to take off the qiankuan bag of the bare-headed man that was caught in his hand. Yang Chen loosened his hand and threw him directly to the side of the wolf-headed man. In his other hand there were already 2 qiankuan bags, which belonged to the leopard man and the bear man. Do you want me to take it myself? Yang Chen's eyes looked at the wolf-head man and scolded. The wolf-head dared not to pretend to be stupid, and hurriedly took the initiative to take off his own qiankuan bag, held it in both hands, and obediently sent it over. His face was carefully plastered with a smile, no longer as arrogant as before. The bear finally slowed down, but he did not dare to act rashly, standing there obediently. The expression on his face was as wronged as he could be, as flattering as he could be. I am new, and there are a lot of rules that I don't understand. Yang Chen took over the wolf-head man's qiankuan bag, and did not care about the eyes around him. He directly opened his spiritual awareness and explored it to see what was inside. While looking at it, he said, "So, I don't know a lot of rules like this. Tell me, are there any rules that I should know that I don't know?" The wolf-head man almost cried out. If he knew that Yang Chen was so terrifying, he would not dare to come up and talk to Yang Chen about these rules and nonsense. A boss in the early Yuanying stage, said to be wasted and even less than 10 breaths, this kind of terrifying combat power, how could he provoke it? That's all. Not anymore. The wolf-head man cried and quickly replied, "In the future, what you say is the rules. We have no rules here. Go on the road." Yang Chen looked up and down at the wolf-head man, but his eyes showed a satisfied look. He patted the other's shoulder with his big hand and loudly praised, "There is a future, follow me in the future." Yes, yes. Although the wolf-head man was also at the early Jedon stage, but now he did not dare to be in front of Yang Chen. He hurriedly bent his waist a little more, so that when Yang Chen patted his shoulder, he did not have to lift his hand too high. "If you have any instructions, this little one will do it immediately." "Who is that?" Yang Chen rushed to the bare-head man who was not far away and shouted, "Do you want to be with him, or follow me?" When he asked him, his hand pointed to the leopard man who was still unconscious over there, and let the bare-head man choose. These guys were originally the gangsters in the market. Although their cultivation base was good, they were basically supported by the elixirs, and their combat power was not strong. They could only bully the younger generation of these stalls in the foundation stage. If they really met a ruthless person like Yang Chen, they would not have any arrogance. Yang Chen let him choose. The bare-head man did not need to choose at all. Their principle was that whoever had the biggest fist was the boss. If the bare-head man had not rushed out too fast, he would not have wanted to come out. Now Yang Chen almost killed him and gave him a chance. If he did not know who to choose, then he could really be stupid. Almost instantly, the bare-head man ran over and stood behind Yang Chen with a loyal look. It was not seen that just a few dozen breaths ago, he was still following others. Take it and open your eyes in the future. Yang Chen was directly thrown back to them by the two Qianquan bags. The two quickly took it and their hearts seemed to be relieved. I want some good materials, at least 10 pounds of middle-grade spirit stones, lead the way. With two younger brothers, Yang Chen did not have to look around for good things. These two guys had been in the stall area for many years, and they were familiar with it. They would lead the way. The reason why he kept the lives of the two was that it was not easy to kill them here, and the second was that there was an acquaintance to lead the way. When he first arrived, Yang Chen still did not know how the market was here. With these two guys, Yang Chen could get a lot of good things at a very cheap price. It was convenient for the local snake to do things, and soon he brought Yang Chen to a booth. The bare-head man did not wait for Yang Chen to ask questions, and directly shouted at the stall owner, "Hurry up, take out your purple jade gold crystal, our boss has taken a fancy to it." "Grandpa Bear, this is my precious collection, you can't." The stall owner's face fell, and he began to complain. "Less nonsense, hurry up and take it out." The bare-head man faced Yang Chen with a face, and faced these stall owners with a face, directly slapping the stall. Under the coercion of the bare-head man, the stall owner finally slowly took out the purple jade gold crystal. "Name a price." Yang Chen's eyes lit up, and said directly to the stall owner. Chapter 592. 40 No, 35 pounds of middle-grade spirit stones. Just when he said 40, the stall owner suddenly saw that the bear and the wolf had already raised their eyes, and hurriedly changed it to 35 pounds. "Buy it." Yang Chen was too lazy to bargain. He directly took out a pile of spirit stones from the Qianquan bag of the leopard, almost 35 pounds of middle-grade spirit stones, threw it on the stall, picked up the purple jade golden crystal, and stuffed it into the merit ring. Such a large piece of purple jade golden crystal, at least 3 pounds, was definitely a metal attribute refining treasure. In the auction of the Central Plains cultivators, it was absolutely not a problem to sell it for 3 pounds of upper-grade spirit stones. There were only 35 pounds of middle-grade spirit stones here. It was simply too cheap to give. He did not think that he could really get the spirit stones. The stall owner looked at this pile of spirit stones and was dumbfounded on the spot. But he quickly reacted like a vicious dog. His hands were wide open, and he threw himself on his stall, protecting the pile of spirit stones. He was afraid that the next moment, these spirit stones would grow wings and fly away. "Go! Look at the others!" Yang Chen snapped his fingers at the bear and wolf, and quickly said. The two hurriedly recovered, and then took Yang Chen to the next goal. With this good start, it seemed that people also realized that although the new Yang Chen was strong, he was not the kind of person who would force people to buy and sell. At least the price given by the stall owner was a little less than their psychological price, but there was still a small profit. If they encountered such a thing again, it would be much easier to talk. However, in the face of the fierce wolf and bear, no one dared to offer a high price at will, and the price was almost the same. Yang Chen almost never changed the price. As long as it was something he liked, he would neatly buy it, and then drop a pile of spirit stones and take the things away. With the Qianquan bag of the leopard, Yang Chen had another layer of cover. At least people now looked at him. He was not the kind of person with a huge sum of money. Everyone knew that he had snatched the leopard head man's Qianquan pouch in front of everyone's eyes. He was very generous, so they all thought he was just being generous with the leopard head man's spirit stones. No one suspected anything else. Yang Chen originally thought that he would have to spend a long time nibbling away at the good things here bit by bit, but he did not expect that someone would come to his door to cover for him. He had spent at least dozens of kilograms of high-grade spirit stones on this purchase, but the things he got in return could definitely be sold at a price several times higher in the Central Plains. Is there a place that sells cultivation techniques? Bring me there. Yang Chen finished the material area and directly told the two new younger brothers, I still have a lot of younger brothers who don't have decent cultivation techniques. The level of you two guys is too bad. Looking at your cleverness, I will also buy one for each of you. Hearing that Yang Chen was buying cultivation techniques for them to consider, the bear and wolf heads were almost happy. They used to follow the leopard head to bully the market, but the big heads were collected by the leopard head himself. People eat meat, they could only drink some soup. They just changed the boss, and immediately there was such a good thing. How could the two not be surprised and happy? Boss, the cultivation techniques are in the book building over there. But, saying the location of the cultivation techniques, the wolf head's tone turned, and he said with some hesitation, But what? Yang Chen asked. The book building is not a place we can go before. The cultivation techniques there are very expensive, and ordinary people can't afford to buy them. The wolf head first looked up at Yang Chen's face and saw that Yang Chen was not angry because of his hesitation. He then said, We never dared to go there before, so, the tone of the wolf head revealed that the power of the book building was not something they could provoke. It was no wonder that the book building was a place to record the inheritance of cultivation technique. It was naturally controlled by the two masters of the Deshang stage, who mastered the rules. How could ordinary people dare to act wildly here? Not to mention the two Jidan stage masters of the wolf head and the bear head, even if it was replaced by the leopard head of the Yuanying stage, he would not dare to easily offend them. There are spirit stones, what are you afraid of? Yang Chen was very disdainful of the two people and said, Open the door to do business, where is the reason to push the spirit stones out? We are going to buy cultivation techniques, not to make trouble, what is there to be guilty about? Yes, boss, this way. Listening to Yang Chen's words, the wolf head suddenly straightened up a lot. Buying things seriously, there was really nothing to be afraid of. Even if the background of the book building was big, since it was open to do business, they could not push the customers out. This area was obviously different from the place where the stalls were just set up. Most of the stalls there were monster cultivators in the foundation stage. The three of them, the leopard head, the bear head, and the wolf head, were quite popular there. However, the street here was much wider and there were a lot more gatekeepers. Even many of the gatekeepers were Jidan stage masters like the wolf head and the bear head, which directly set off the difference between this side and the stall area. Old bear, old wolf, this is not where you can come, hurry back to your site. As soon as the three of them arrived on this street, someone immediately shouted at the two people behind Yang Chen, If you want to act wildly, go to your site and act wildly, don't fall down here. The stall area was still some distance away from here. What happened over there had not yet spread here, so no one knew that the old bear and the old wolf had changed their boss. The guard was still on high alert, and his reminder was also a warning to the two of them. We are accompanying the boss to buy a cultivation method. With the guidance of Yang Chen, the two guys seemed to be a lot more confident. They straightened their backs and replied loudly, What? Is the book building still not selling to us? Of course we will sell it if we have spirit stones. Hearing that they were here to buy a cultivation method and not to make trouble, the guard over there also put down his vigilance. But some people still heard the name of the boss in their mouth. Seeing that the old bear and the old wolf were actually following behind Yang Chen, they had some doubts about what kind of sacred place Yang Chen was, unexpectedly becoming the new boss of the old bear and the old wolf. However, this had nothing to do with them. They were only responsible for not having unpleasant things happen here. As for who the old bear and the old wolf wanted to follow, it was not something they should care about. Shopkeeper, a big deal is coming. The book building was very imposing. It was estimated that it was a palace that had existed for a long time. As soon as Yang Chen entered the door, he shouted loudly inside. The book building is an important place, no noise is allowed. As soon as Yang Chen's voice fell, a low voice immediately came and issued a warning. Bring your best cultivation methods, I want to choose a suitable batch for my brothers. Yang Chun ignored the voice inside and then shouted again. While shouting, he threw the Qiankuan bag of the leopard man directly on the empty table in the book building and sat down next to it. Dozens of gene of the best spirit stones business, is there anyone to manage it? After sitting down, Yang Chun shouted at the empty space again. He was unspeakably arrogant. Chapter 593. A few dozen pounds of best quality spirit stones? The voice hesitated, and then no longer said anything. It seemed that being rich and imposing had the benefits of being rich and imposing, at least it could make some rules become less important for a moment. Although the bear and wolf did not know how many spirit stones the leopard headman had, they also knew that he would never have so many best quality spirit stones. Listening to Yang Chen's clamor, both of them were secretly sweating. But no one dared to say anything, whether it was Yang Chen or the book building. They could not afford to offend him. An old man with a long beard slowly walked out from behind. He was holding a walking stick that looked like it had been there for a long time. The crutch should have been broken from a tree branch. It was not even trimmed, and it still maintained the appearance of a branch. However, the place where it was held was already bright, and it was not known how long it had been played. Seeing the old man, Yang Chen's eyes fell directly on the crutch. It seemed that the crutch was an ordinary branch, but Yang Chun found that it was clearly a branch of ironheart wood. This was a good thing for refining wood attribute magic weapons, almost close to the Penglai divine wood. The shape of the crutch was the natural shape of the branch, but whoever believed that this wood had not been sacrificially refined was a fool. However, unlike human cultivators, the monster cultivators preferred to retain the natural form of this ironheart wood, rather than sacrificially refining it into the shape of a flying sword. Is there a big deal? The old man sat down tremblingly, glanced at the pocket in front of Yang Chen, and asked Yang Chen. The voice was not high, nor harsh, but very peaceful. This junior wants to buy the highest level of cultivation method. Yang Chen was not polite. Here in the monster race, the kind of complicated and trivial politeness was meaningless, but it was more efficient to be straightforward. Is there a recommendation from the city lord? The old man did not lift his eyelids and asked directly. No. Yang Chen shook his head. This junior has just come to the city, and it is an eye-opener. This statement was very common. Most of the foreign demon cultivators came here under the guidance of others. They came here in search of better development, environment, cultivation methods, artifacts, and so on. Here, they could almost find the best of the demon cultivators. The old man nodded his head slightly and said noncommittally, "If you don't have it, then it will be a little expensive to buy a cultivation technique. Senior, please state your price." Yang Chern had thought that it would be impossible to buy it without the city lord's recommendation. In the end, it was only a little expensive. A problem that could be solved with spirit stones was not a problem at all. You use it. This time, the old man raised his head and looked at Yang Chen. Even his spiritual will rushed out and touched Yang Chen's. This junior wants to use it. In addition, I also want to buy some for my brothers. Yang Chen didn't hide his appetite at all. Otherwise, how could it be considered a big business? Little calf, let me think of a suitable cultivation method. The old man closed his eyes and began to ponder. After a long time, he raised his head and asked, "What do your friends need?" "An old tree, a small tree, a viper, and a sand scorpion." Yang Chen counted the old tree demon Gui Shanyu, Shi Kuei and Xiesha, and the cypress that he would win over in the future. Finally, he added two more, and the two of them. The latter two, of course, referred to the wolf and bear. The two guys didn't dare to dream of buying the highest level of cultivation method in the book building. Listening to Yang Chen's words, their whole body trembled with excitement. Them? The old man glanced at them and shook his head. The foundation is too poor. In order to improve their cultivation base, They have taken a lot of messy things. Their realm is also consolidated. You can kill them casually. Advanced cultivation methods, they are not suitable. The old man's words were like a ladle of cold water, directly poured on the heads of the wolf and bear. They thought that in the stalls area, in the eyes of the old man, they were simply two wastes, unbearable, and even their cultivation methods were not suitable. Then find the best foundation-laying cultivation method. The cultivation base is not a big deal. What does it matter? Yang Chen said without care. These two fellows were originally just supplementary. Giving them some benefits was to make them work for him wholeheartedly, not to build them up. That's it? The old man asked again. If there is, it is best to have a spiritual awareness cultivation method. Yang Chen finally added a sentence. Even if it was a monster cultivator, it was good to have a strong spiritual awareness. Of course, such a cultivation method was needed. The old tree and the small tree can be used, but since there are old and young, there must be a foundation and advanced cultivation method. Plus the advanced cultivation method of the viper, the advanced cultivation method of the sand scorpion, and the two foundation-laying cultivation methods of the wolf and bear, a total of 3 advanced cultivation methods and 3 foundation-laying cultivation methods. The old man quickly quoted to Yang Chen, add a cultivation method to cultivate spiritual awareness, 7 kinds of cultivation methods, advanced cultivation method and spiritual awareness cultivation method are 5 pounds of top-quality spirit stones, the other 3 are 1 pound each, 23 pounds of top-quality spirit stones. Listening to the price quoted by the old man, the bear and the wolf were directly stunned. At such a high price, even if they swept the goods in the stalls area, they might not be able to afford so many cultivation methods. They couldn't help but glance at Yang Chen. On the one hand, they expected Yang Chen to buy it, on the other hand, they were worried that Yang Chen could not afford it. Yang Chen almost never lacked spirit stones. Since the last time he was chased by Luo Yuan, Yang Chen almost spent 3 pieces of top-quality spirit stones. When he came back, he added a large number from Shangguan Feng. What's more, after killing so many, those guys had a lot of spirit stones on their bodies. Although 23 pounds of top-quality spirit stones were a lot, in the eyes of Yang Chen, it was nothing. Of course, it was impossible for Yang Chen to carry all the top-quality spirit stones. Soon, a Qianquan bag full of spirit stones of various grades was handed over to the old man. The old man did not expect that Yang Chen really came to spend a lot of money to buy a cultivation method. When he took the Qianquan bag, he was stunned. The monster race rarely had such wealth. Even if there was, it was not a calf in the Jedon stage, but more of a Yuanying stage or higher master. However, no one would ask the origin of these spirit stones. Since the spirit stones were enough, the old man quickly put away the spirit stones and then stood up. Come with me. The 3 followed the old man and soon came to the inside of the book building. Just now, it was just the front hall to receive guests. This was where the real book building was located. Of course, it was still not a place to store the cultivation methods, but a place for guests to choose. A row of jade slips was neatly placed on a table in the middle of the room. The old man gestured to the other side. Pick it yourself. If you want any cultivation method, just say it, someone will give it to you. Chapter 594. This row of jade slips was the catalogue of all the cultivation methods in the book building. Of course, each cultivation method was accompanied by an introduction, classification, and so on. At least at a glance, it was clear whether it was a high-level cultivation method or a foundation-laying cultivation method, and how the effect would be after the cultivation. This move of the book building was also in the name of looking at the opportunities of each person. In fact, it was still to test the customer's own vision. If their own vision was not good, and they wanted a high-level attack power cultivation method, but accidentally chose a defensive type, then they could only spend a lot of money to buy it again. This was also a way to make money in the book building. However, these arrangements basically had no effect on Yang Chen. With Yang Chen's knowledge, after knowing the general cultivation effect, he was basically able to judge the quality of the cultivation method. The word eye-catching would basically not happen to Yang Chen. Yang Chen began to explore the contents of the jade slips one by one. There was a look of doubt on his face. It seemed that there were too many choices and he couldn't make a decision, but his heart was full of joy. There were not many opportunities to understand the characteristics of the cultivation methods of the monster race. Yang Chen had to grasp it no matter what. The old man was already used to this situation. How many monster cultivators almost went bankrupt to buy a suitable cultivation method? When choosing, they were as cautious as Yang Chen. Sitting on the side, the old man did not urge him, but slightly closed his eyes, as if he was closing his eyes to rest. Yang Chen looked very slowly. It took almost a full hour to choose the basic foundation laying cultivation method. Finally, he picked out 3 of them. Looking at the cultivation method chosen by Yang Chen, the old man did not have much surprise. This kind of basic foundation laying cultivation method, in fact, everyone was almost the same. It was just that when cultivating, they had to be calm and not think of reaching the sky in one step. The 3 cultivation methods chosen by Yang Chen belonged to the steady type. The cultivation speed would not be too fast, but if he persisted, it would also have a good effect. It was definitely more solid than the current 2 guys, the bear and the wolf, who did not know how to promote to the Jedon stage. The foundation-laying cultivation method here actually cost 1 gene of top-grade spirit stones. It was no wonder that among the demon cultivators that Yang Chen had seen, there were only a few who had a good foundation. He reckoned that not many of them had good cultivation methods, but they had obtained some incomplete cultivation methods from outside and slowly practiced them. Of course, even so, he was much luckier than those who didn't have any cultivation methods. Not to mention anything else, even if it was an incomplete cultivation technique, the cultivation speed would still be several times faster than that of ordinary demon cultivators. With cultivation, one could earn more spirit stones, and in turn, purchase better cultivation methods. As for those guys who were struggling outside, their performance was slightly better than the demon cultivators here. The guys outside, like Shi Kuei, Xiesha, and the old tree demon, which one of them didn't rely on instinct to cultivate bit by bit in various difficult environments, and the time spent was almost several times more than here. After such painstaking work, it was impossible for the foundation not to be solid. Inside and outside the city, each had its own benefit. It was just that he didn't know the person in charge here. The foundation-laying cultivation method was so expensive. This was really to cultivate the demon cultivators, or to scrape a layer of skin from them. For the advanced cultivation method, Yang Chen's choice was even slower. It was almost a word by word, as if he had to look at all the cultivation methods to determine which one he wanted in the end. This slow and dull process took a few more hours. The old man had been sitting there with his eyes closed the whole time, not moving at all. At this time, it was seen that the patience of the bear and the wolf was insufficient. The 2 guys began to fidget as if there were needles under their butts. They would jump up and stare at Yang Chen for a few steps, and then sit down again, scratching their ears and cheeks for a moment. With such a temperament, even if there was really a good cultivation method, it was not necessarily possible to cultivate it with good result. Yang Chen certainly knew this. In the same way, the old man sat there without moving, but he was also clear about the performance of the 2 guys. For Yang Chen, he was willing to spend 2 pounds of the best spirit stones to buy cultivation methods for the 2 of them. He really couldn't figure it out. With these 2 pounds of best spirit stones, it was enough to rent the most abundant room in the city for a long time. Cultivating in that kind of room, the effect was many times better than in the lowest room. Did Yang Chen not even understand this? Yang Chen naturally did not know the old man's heart, but carefully read the jade slips one by one. It took a whole day and night to read all the contents on these dozens of jade slips. Then Yang Chen sat down and recalled the cultivation methods he had seen in his mind, combined with the characteristics of Shi Kuei, Xie Sha, and the old tree demon. He selected the three most suitable cultivation method. In fact, this cultivation method had a general category suitable for what kind of demon cultivator. As long as he chose in this category, there would not be much difference. Of course, the cultivation method for cultivating spiritual awareness, Yang Chen did not forget to choose. However, there were very few cultivation methods for cultivating spiritual awareness. There were only a few kinds, and it seemed that the effect was almost the same. Yang Chen randomly chose a royal spirit secret art. After saying all the cultivation methods he had chosen, the old man raised his eyelids and asked with some surprise, "Why, you don't choose one yourself? The royal spirit secret art is for this younger generation junior to use." Yang Chen smiled and answered the old man's question. After the old man looked up and down at Yang Chen's body, he nodded slightly and said, "The body refining technique is good." Then he stood up and walked directly to the back, presumably to give Yang Chen the cultivation method. The bear and the wolf watched the old man disappear behind, and almost at the same time, they rushed to the side of Yang Chen. They wanted to anxiously ask Yang Chen what cultivation method he chose, but they were scolded by Yang Chen. "Steady. If you have it, there will be. If you don't have it, it's useless to be anxious." The two guys did not dare to speak again, and sat next to Yang Chen. Although their bodies did not dare to twist again, the anxiety and expectation on their faces could not be concealed in any way. After a while, the old man came out with 7 pieces of jade slips and placed them in front of Yang Chen. Yang Chen picked it up one by one and roughly scanned it. He made sure that the things he got were correct. After all of them were put away, he thanked the old man. "You don't have to thank me." The old man smiled and said, "Just take care of a few more business. This is already the savings of this younger generation junior and a few friends." Yang Chen got the cultivation method in his hand, and was not afraid to say 2 more words to the old man. "If we have to take care of your business, we really can't even afford to eat." And the old man nodded and said, "Everyone is not easy, but I still give you a word. Even if you have a good cultivation method, don't be too ambitious. Down to earth is the way of cultivation." Chapter 595. Until he was far away, Yang Chen was still thinking about what the old man in the book building said. The old man's words were very reasonable, but Yang Chen was not sure if he said this to everyone here, or only to himself. In any case, now that the old tree demon Shi Kuei and Xie Sha and the future little monstrous talent Mu Bo's cultivation methods were in hand, Yang Chen also plundered a batch of high-level materials. Next, it was the focus to find the first wood true essence. As for the more advanced materials in the store, Yang Chen needed a period of time to sweep the goods. Otherwise, if he spent a lot of spirit stones, it would definitely attract the attention of many guys, which was not good for him to find the first wood true essence. The bear and wolf got the foundation-laying cultivation methods they dreamed of, but they faced a problem, that was, hesitating whether to abolish their current cultivation base and start over again. At this point, Yang Chen did not give any advice. He only needed the 2 guys to do things. At least when he needed it, these 2 guys could give him the fastest news. As for how they were going to cultivate, Yang Chen did not care. Everything was up to their own wishes. The 2 guys did not have the ruthlessness of Sun Qingxue, who could completely abolish their own cultivation base and start over again. After hesitating for a long time, he decided to relay the foundation of this cultivation base. Compared to abolishing the cultivation base and starting over again, this method was obviously more time-consuming. However, one advantage was that he could still maintain his own cultivation base for the time being, but it would take a longer time to replace his own cultivation base. The room Yang Chen rented had been thoroughly checked. In this lowest-level room, although the spiritual power was more abundant than the outside world, it was impossible to have such a thing as the first wood true essence. The more advanced rooms were the same. A gene of high-grade spirit stones could rent a room for a month. Yang Chen did not think that there would be such a precious thing. So, in other words, in this standard cultivation room, it was unlikely to have the first wood true essence. Yang Chen was not sure whether there was any first wood true essence in this city, but as long as there was a glimmer of hope, Yang Chen would not give up. This was the 10,000 trees forest, the most likely place to have the first wood true essence. Other places do not seem to have such a strong first wood aura. Maybe there may be, but it will never be more than here. Of course, Yang Chen couldn't just ask them what was wrong with the city. He had to pretend for a while. Therefore, he took out the demon race's spiritual sense cultivation method and pretended to cultivate it himself. Relatively speaking, the cultivation techniques of the demon race were still biased towards the demon race. Yang Chen only looked for a moment before he noticed the problem. This was not to say that this cultivation method had any drawbacks, but relatively speaking, Yang Chen had a cultivation method that was more effective than this. If the incantation and the beast taming method left behind by the Azure Ox were used at the same time, it would be more effective in improving one's spiritual sense than this cultivation method. This was something Yang Chen had not expected. He thought that what the Azure Ox left behind was just something that allowed him to cultivate the beast-taming method, but he did not expect that it would actually increase his spiritual awareness. This cultivation method was different from the Three Purities secret art. It was just some supplement. Yang Chen originally thought that this would only allow him to cultivate the beast-taming method of the demon race, but he did not expect it to have another effect. The so-called growth of spiritual awareness for Yang Chen was actually the growth of the monster soul. That was, the huge bull horns in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. The reason why Yang Chen would be considered as the same kind by the monster race was because of such a huge pair of bull horns in his sea of consciousness. After learning about the cultivation method of the monster race to increase the spiritual awareness and monster soul, Yang Chen understood something that had been ignored before. The reason why he could be easily seen by the old tree demon and Lan Yen that he was not from the monster race was because his monster soul was not strong enough. In front of their powerful monster soul, there was no place to hide. In this city there were monster race everywhere. Yang Chen had to be careful step by step. He could not be seen through his identity, otherwise there would be big trouble. The old man in the book building, Yang Chen had not seen the depth for the time being, because he did not dare to use his own spiritual awareness to explore the other party, and the words left by the other party when he left were very memorable. Yang Chen didn't even know if he had been seen through, but now Yang Chen had to remedy it. Absorbing the first wood true essence was not a matter of a short time. Even if it was found, it would take at least a few years to be able to cultivate the first wood true secret art. Once it was seen through, it would be beyond redemption. Yang Chen had to make a last-minute effort and continue to cultivate this cultivation method and the beast-taming method. Fortunately, cultivating these cultivation methods did not require a strong spiritual power, but to strengthen his own monster soul, so Yang Chen did not care what level of room he cultivated in. This room had been rented by Yang Chen for at least a year, and it was just used to strengthen the monster soul. Since Yang Chen successfully cultivated the beast-taming method, he had not cultivated these secret arts again. Yang Chen recultivated this time, but in less than 2 months, Yang Chen felt the strong effect. In the sea of consciousness, part of the spiritual awareness began to transform into the monster soul, strengthening into the huge horns. The entity of the horns began to become more solid, and many patterns like real horns began to appear on it. Although Yang Chen did not use the beast-taming method against other monster race cultivators again, Yang Chen had already felt that compared to the initial communication effect, Yang Chen could establish a connection with the monster race more easily, and the transmitted consciousness was clearer, and the content was more detailed. With this understanding, Yang Chen began to cultivate the beast-taming method more diligently. In a year's time, Yang Chen's current monster soul has undergone earth-shaking changes. The huge bull's horns were still the same size, but both the bull's horns and the part of the skull that was connected to it were covered in dense patterns. Looking from a distance, it was a pair of real horns magnified in the sea of consciousness. Yang Chen could even feel the hardness of the horns. Compared to when Yang Chen came here, the monster soul was definitely more than several times stronger. As a bridge connecting the two sides of the blood river, because of the growth of the horns, the role played was more powerful. At least now, Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, the degree of firmness has once again improved by a level. Even if there was a master like Luo Yuan who launched a spiritual awareness attack, Yang Chen would not have any problem. The peak early Deshang stage, spiritual awareness, slowly weakened to the middle of the early Deshang stage. In exchange for the stability of the entire sea of consciousness, it could also make Yang Chen's spiritual awareness not soar so much. Cultivating the monster soul was really a matter of killing two birds with one stone. Chapter 596. Cultivating for a whole year, Yang Chen was also here for a year of retreat. Coming out of the room, Yang Chen noticed the aura of the bear and the wolf. After the two guys got the cultivation method purchased by Yang Chen, they followed Yang Chen to his residence. Speaking of it, the wolf and bear used to follow the leopard in the market, but they did not get too many benefits. Their cultivation place was also the lowest room rented by the leopard. However, the leopard was stingy, only renting for a month at a time, so that the two guys had no shelter. Following Yang Chen, they just had a place to stay. Yang Chen was cultivating inside, and they were cultivating outside. The two guys did not think of any evil intentions, but they noticed that Yang Chen was getting stronger and stronger day by day. The two guys thought about the leopard's fate, and they did not dare to have any second thoughts. In addition to staying outside honestly, while staying in Yang Chen's room to cultivate and waiting for Yang Chen's instructions, the two guys did not even dare to go to the market. Without the support of the leopard in the Yuanying stage, the two guys in the Jedan stage might be abolished by a few powerful foundation stage beasts. From Yang Chen's Jedan stage, he could abolish the leopard in the Yuanying stage. It could be seen that the realm alone was useless, and the real combat strength was fundamental. How could they know that there were not a few strong foundation stage guys in the market that could directly overturn the two of them? Yes, you are obedient. Looking at the two guys respectfully waiting for instructions, Yang Chen also nodded slightly. Follow me, I will not treat you badly. As he said that, there were two large pieces of high-grade spirit stones in his hand, each of which was 5 or 6 genes, and he threw one to each of them. The two guys took the spirit stones, and their eyes were wide open. They could hardly believe that they just stayed in the room and rubbed Yang Chen's room to cultivate, and there were such benefits. You don't have to go to the market anymore. You won't be able to make a name for yourself. Yang Chen looked at the shocked expressions on the two's faces and laughed in his heart. He then ordered, "Now, help me investigate something." "What's the matter? Please instruct me." The wolf had more eyesight than the bear, and hurriedly bowed down and asked with a smile. "You are familiar with the city. Help me think of any strange places." Yang Chen did not hide the fact that he wanted the two fellows to do something for him. He directly instructed them, "If there are any places in the city with a special aura, the more you can think of, the more benefits you will get." As soon as they heard that Yang Chen was just looking for some special places in the city, the wolf and bear were almost overjoyed. The two of them might not have the guts and strength to go out and risk their lives, but they were just looking for a place in the city that they were familiar with. That was simply giving them benefits. Yang Chen had given each of them 5 caddies of upper-level spirit stones for staying here obediently. This was even more than what they could get by extorting money from the market for a year. If they really found the place that Yang Chen was looking for, wouldn't there be more rewards? I don't dare to say anything else, just looking for a place in the city, there is no one more familiar than the two of us. The bear looked honest, almost patting his chest to guarantee that he would be able to find it. We know a few now, do you want to see it for yourself? The wolf was not willing to fall behind, and immediately went to the front and asked, "Lead the way." Yang Chen was also straightforward, and directly let the two guys take him out. After practicing the beast-controlling secret art for a whole year, Yang Chen could now ensure that he would not reveal his identity in front of the Middle Deshang stage monsters. Even if it was in the city, where there was a special place, Yang Chen was not afraid. Swaggering along with the two guys, Yang Chen came to the first place with a special aura that they said in their mouth. This was a building built entirely of metal. It was not particularly tall, but there was a very pure metal attribute aura. In this 10,000 trees forest city, it was indeed very special. The metal attribute aura was not what Yang Chen was looking for. However, this place was indeed in line with Yang Chen's requirement. After Yang Chen pretended to explore here, he soon discovered that this was an artificially arranged formation. Its role was to gather the metal attribute spirit power and let some metal attribute monsters cultivate nearby. The monsters also had their own 5-element. It was impossible for there to be only one attribute of spirit power in this city. Such an arrangement was very in line with the requirements of comprehensive care. Very good. Yang Chen recognized the two guys leading the way, which made the bear and the wolf very happy. "Is this the place you are looking for?" the wolf asked again, and the bear was also waiting at the side with anticipation. "Not here, change one." Yang Chen waved his hand to let the two continue. Next, Yang Chen followed the two and found several other places with 5-element. The water attribute, fire attribute, and earth attribute were all prepared for the monster cultivators of different attribute. These places had a strange atmosphere, but they were not the places that Yang Chen was looking for. What Yang Chen was looking for was the place where the first wood true essence gathered. It was absolutely impossible to find these places with these attribute. However, Yang Chen did not skip these places directly because he knew the existence of these places. Every place Yang Chen personally went to investigate. He wanted to know what the attainments of the monster race in this city had reached, which would help him make a more intuitive judgment of the power of the monster race. The place with would attribute spirit power was not special, because the entire city was under the old banyan tree in the 10,000 trees forest, and it was filled with rich would attribute spirit power. These places were not the places that Yang Chen was looking for, which made the wolf and bear very disappointed. They also thought that this time, in just a few days, they could take Yang Chen to a few places, and they could earn more spirit stones, but there was no place that Yang Chen wanted to find, and they were also anxious. "Is there any other place in the city with a strange atmosphere?" Yang Chen asked again after looking at the earth attribute land. "No." The wolf shook his head directly. The strange atmosphere in this city was only in these few places, and other places looked very normal. "There is another place." The bear was more simple, and spoke without thinking, and directly said, "It is a bit dangerous there." "Not there." The wolf did not wait for Yang Chen to ask where it was, and directly shouted, "Not there." "Where? Why not?" Yang Chen was interested and asked curiously. "It is a forbidden area in the city. Someone has been there before, and there is no bones left, so it has been closed." The wolf hurriedly replied, "There is no strange atmosphere there, there is a pool of water that I don't know the depth of." Chapter 597. Pool? No aura? Yang Chen was also a bit stunned. But he immediately waved his hand and said, "Let's go and see." "No way." The wolf and bear were shocked, and the wolf immediately reacted. Yang Chen was an outsider, and he did not know how powerful it was over there. It was understandable. "No. It's too dangerous there." The wolf seemed to have changed his mind because of the foundation cultivation methods he had practiced this year. He immediately shook his head and stopped him. "You haven't seen it, you don't know how powerful it is. 3 Yuanying stage ancestors have been swallowed there, and no one has dared to approach within 100 steps. I'm not going in, I'm just going to take a look. Yang Chen smiled and said, even if I look at it from 100 steps away, I will gain some knowledge. Hearing that Yang Chen would not go directly, but look around, the two guys were a little relieved. This was the reason why they took Yang Chen all the way around a few big circles before rushing over. There was no aura, but it had swallowed 3 Yuanying stage ancestors? Yang Chen was more curious about this pool. Until the moment he saw the pool, Yang Chen was still guessing what it was that could cause such a powerful thing. The wolf and bear took Yang Chen to a high room. There was no one living here, and there was no spiritual power, but from here, it was possible to see the scene below at a glance. The pool was in sight, and it could be seen from the window of the room. The wolf went to the window in advance and stretched out his sleeves to wipe the dust. Then he invited Yang Chen to come over and pointed to the pool. It's there. The pool was not big, only 100 square feet, and the color of the water showed a dark green. It was not known how many years it had not changed. At least 300 steps away from here, Yang Chen could not smell it. In other places, almost everywhere was a towering tree, but around the pool there was no tree, it was bare, and it looked very abrupt. There were not only trees around, but there was no grass, it could really be regarded as barren. Don't use your divine senses. Yang Chen's heart moved. When he was about to use his spiritual awareness to explore, the wolf head suddenly said, there are 2 Yuanying stage ancestors and hundreds of Jedan stage masters. Because of curiosity, they used their spiritual awareness to explore it. As a result, they were pulled into the pool and never got up again. Standing at this distance, Yang Chen really couldn't feel any strange aura. It seemed that the two fellows were telling the truth. However, Yang Chen was still curious. How did this place become a place of great danger? Is there something in the pool? Yang Chen turned around and asked, is there some kind of peerless beast? This seemed to be everyone's first reaction when they realized the situation. If there was no beast, how could it be possible? I don't know. This time it was the bear who answered quickly, no one knows, no one has seen it. In any case, from the very beginning when everyone found out about this place, they were warned not to casually approach it, or else they would be in big trouble. A lot of masters have disappeared, and no one dares to take this risk. Has anyone seen anyone who went in and didn't come out? Yang Chen asked again. If no one had seen it, and it was just a legend, there must be a hidden story. Almost every few years, there is a guy who doesn't believe in evil and goes in. The wolf head stared at the other side and said, you know, there are always friends who believe that they are the chosen son of heaven and have a great fortune. There must be a good thing left by a predecessor here, and they will be able to get it. But those who go in have never come out. How do they get in? Yang Chen asked again. They don't believe in evil and go in, and in a while they disappear on the water. This time it was replaced by the bear head. This pool is very strange. When you go in, there are no ripples, and it just disappears. It is very calm. No one dares to fish, everyone just looks at it. Anyway, I have seen at least 10 little guys go in and never come out. Even the bear head said so. It seemed that this situation was not uncommon. Yang Chen did not want to be so shocking, and of course, he would not rush in under the public. He just looked at it from afar and did not speak for a long time. Yang Chen did not move, and the bear and wolf heads did not dare to move. They also looked at the other side, and no one knew what Yang Chen was thinking. But no one dared to disturb Yang Chen. Well, a strange place. After a long time, Yang Chen sighed and then turned away. The bear and wolf heads were relieved. As long as they did not go in, there would be no big deal. It was not easy to meet a guy who was willing to invest in them, and it could not be so simple to disappear. Other places with strange auras there is no more. After returning to Yang Chen's rented room, the two searched their guts and scraped their bellies, and there was no other place that met Yang Chen's requirements. Well, it's okay, if you can't find it, then forget it. Yang Chen seemed to have let go of this matter, and turned to instruct the two other things. In the near future, you will go to the market and see if there are any good materials, leave them for me. This was the best thing for the two guys. The market, especially the stall area, was more familiar with it than them. Both of them hurriedly nodded in agreement. I will go to a more advanced place to retreat for a period of time. You live here first, I have paid the rent for 10 years. Yang Chen pointed to the room where he was now and left the room for the two. Benefits fell from the sky. This room was clearly a reward of a lot of spirit stones. The two guys were so happy that their mouths could not be closed. They just took Yang Chen to walk in the city for a few days, and there were such benefits. What if they helped Yang Chen to buy a batch of advanced materials? They were excited to think about it. For a more advanced room with more spiritual energy, the two did not have extravagant expectations. Now, to recultivate the foundation-laying cultivation method, it did not need too much spiritual energy, but it needed a lot of time to relay the foundation. As for Yang Chen, this situation was more normal. As an outsider, what did he want to come here for? Wasn't it better cultivation methods, better materials, and more abundant spiritual energy? In these aspects, Yang Chen had already occupied all of them. No one would think that Yang Chen's performance was abnormal. After taking Yang Chen to a higher-level room, the two personally sent Yang Chen to the room on the second floor of the city, and then respectfully said goodbye. The appearance of Yang Chen, although the most profound shock when they met, also gave them hope. The first thing the two did when they came out was to hurry to the market and ask the guys who set up the stalls to leave the good things. No one knew that Yang Chen was thinking about the pool. Chapter 598. A strange pool. There was definitely something weird. There was no aura, but it also explained another problem, that was, there must be something under the pool that could isolate the aura. Unfortunately, the people who went down did not have any results, and no one knew what was below. Perhaps some people already knew, but they were controlled by the city manager, and it was possible that they could not say it out. But in Yang Chen's guess, water was wood, since there was no aura of the water attribute here. Maybe it had been absorbed by something, and the first wood true essence was the most likely. However, if he wanted to know whether there was the first wood true essence in it, Yang Chen had only one way, that was to go in and see for himself. It was just that this required a lot of risk. The words of the bear and the wolf would not be false. The pool had swallowed several masters of the Yuanying stage. It must have happened. The first wood true essence was very important to Yang Chen. There was only such a strange place in the city. No matter what, Yang Chen must go in and see. In any case, there was such a strange pool in the city. If no one paid attention to it, then it would be a ghost. It was almost impossible to sneak in without anyone noticing. Even if Yang Chen had the sea-pouring jasper cup on him, which could isolate the exploration of spiritual awareness, it could not block the observation of the naked eye. And around the pool, there were definitely some people staring at it day and night. In this way, entering the pool had become a big problem. Yang Chen sat in the middle of the room, but he was thinking about how to find an excuse to go in without being suspected. In the midst of his dilemma, Yang Chen's heart suddenly moved. The spiritual awareness threads he arranged around the room suddenly noticed a few unusual movements, and it seemed that someone was approaching. After a while, as the people came closer, Yang Chen could be completely sure that someone was sneaking over. It was not one person, but 4, and these 4 people turned out to be Yuanying stage masters. 4 Yuanying stage masters of the monster race, sneaking around his room. Yang Chen couldn't think of why they were here. However, since the other party came to the door, Yang Chen suddenly thought of an excuse to enter the pool. Suddenly, a strange noise came from outside the door. Getting up and opening the door, Yang Chen strode out of the room and looked at the empty surroundings above the surface. After scanning around, his face showed a puzzled expression. He sniffed a few times in the air as if he wanted to smell something, but in the end, Yang Chen just frowned and didn't say anything. Just as he was about to turn around and return to his room, the door behind him suddenly closed. "Who is it?" Yang Chen shouted. The door wouldn't close on its own, so someone must be playing tricks. "This kid is still very vigilant." A voice came from above Yang Chen's head. Yang Chen seemed to be startled and jumped back before looking up at the sky. "Senior, why have you come to this junior's door?" Although Yang Chen looked shocked, he did not panic and was still very calm. "You crippled our brother, and you dare to swagger in the city. You are really impatient to live." Another voice suddenly sounded from the left side of Yang Chen, so that Yang Chen suddenly turned around and changed the angle so that he could see in two directions at the same time. "If you have been retreating in your room, we really can't do anything about it." Suddenly there was a strange voice behind him. "However, you have been swaggering in the city these days. Do you think we are all decorations?" Yang Chen's body had begun to spin, and the three guys seemed to have surrounded him, but Yang Chen's eyes were sweeping in other directions. "How Ah Bao was crippled at the time, you will be crippled today." In another direction there was another strange voice. "Ah Bao? Are you the brothers of the waste in the market?" Constantly spinning, Yang Chen put on a vigilant posture, but he asked, "Why didn't those two guys tell me?" The guy on the top of his head slowly descended a little, and sneered, "The two wastes don't know that we are also a group. A stall in the market is not worth 5 yuanying stage masters to come out together." This was very reasonable. It was just a stall area. In fact, the appearance of the wolf and the bear could already occupy the upper hand. Most of the monster cultivators there were in the foundation stage, and the 2 Jedon stage masters were enough to hold the scene. Coupled with the leopard in the yuanying stage, it could almost be said that they were invincible. Abolishing a yuanying stage master, although it was said that he had established his prestige, he also offended these yuanying stage masters. If it was a general Jedon stage monster cultivator, this was already deadly trouble. As soon as the leopard was abolished, Yang Chen immediately bought something in the market and went to the library. Then he retreated in his room and did not come out. When these guys received the news, it was too late to block Yang Chen outside, and the rules of the city were that they must not hurt the people in the room, but these guys could not do anything about it. Not to mention 4 yuanying stage masters, even if there were 40 yuanying stage masters, they would not dare to easily challenge the rules of the city. The master of the Deshang stage, plus the restrictions of the city itself, even if it was a master of the Deshang stage, they would not dare to easily break the rules. It was not easy for Yang Chen to come out for a few days. Several of them retreated for a period of time, and when they just came out, someone told them the news. Unfortunately, when they rushed over, Yang Chen had already entered the room again. They could only make a little movement to lead Yang Chen out. As long as they blocked Yang Chen and did not let him return to the room, then everything would be fine. In addition to not killing Yang Chen, they could do whatever they wanted. Now that this plan has been successfully realized, a yuanying stage ancestor has blocked the door of Yang Chen's room. In their eyes, Yang Chen could no longer go back. He was destined to be a waste. "I heard that you are not poor. It seems that we have to accept it." The guy who finally spoke slowly walked forward. Every step he took seemed to bring a heavy pressure to Yang Chen. The master on the top of his head, and the yuanying stage ancestor in the other direction also began to slowly push forward. 4 people, from 4 directions, surrounded Yang Chen in it. "If you want my wealth, exchange it with your life." Yang Chen seemed to have been forced into a desperate situation, and suddenly began to erupt, like a thunderbolt in the ground. It was not known how many people around were awakened. Countless spiritual awareness swept over. It seemed that they did not expect that Yang Chen would make such a big movement with such a loud voice. The 4 people were stunned. In this moment, Yang Chen's figure suddenly turned into a flying goose, and rushed toward a gap that the 4 people exposed. Chapter 599. The direction in which Yang Chen rushed out was the room reserved for the bear and the wolf. That was the room he rented, and he had the right to enter the door. As long as he could rush in, his safety could be guaranteed. Anyway, he had rented the room for a few years. Even if these guys were ruthless, it was impossible for them to guard him for so many years. The 4 Yuanying stage ancestors were frightened by Yang Chen's voice, and they let Yang Chen escape, and they were furious. They didn't want to think about it and directly chased after him. The figure of Yang Chen was in front, and the figures of the 4 people were behind, and they disappeared like the wind and lightning. However, what had just happened had already caused hundreds of spiritual awareness to sweep over, and the owners of the spiritual awareness seemed to have guessed what had happened. The city was not small, and Yang Chen fled at full speed, but it took him a stick of incense to get there. The 4 Yuanying stage ancestors behind him, even with all their efforts, they did not catch up with Yang Chen. At most, they could only keep a distance from Yang Chen. Seeing that he had already seen the house over there, and when Yang Chen was about to rush in, at the door of the room, a strange leopard monster suddenly appeared. The leopard head showed a ferocious smile, and looked at Yang Chen viciously. The other party had already considered that Yang Chen would escape here, and even thought about this step. However, the leopard monster was only a master in the late Jedan stage. Yang Chen gritted his teeth, and the direction did not change, and continued to rush over. At first glance, the leopard monster was related to the leopard Yuanying stage master who was abolished by Yang Chen. Seeing Yang Chen rushing over, he did not show weakness and directly rushed up. Yang Chen's fist, in the process of the charge, had already been waved out, with a scream that made people's hearts chill, smashed towards the leopard Jedan stage master. Not to be outdone, the leopard demon stretched out his hand as well. However, his hand suddenly turned into a leopard's claw. His sharp fingernails, which were more than a foot long, shone with a cold light as they met Yang Chen's fist. Ding! The fist and the sharp claw collided, emitting a crisp sound, as if 2 metal utensils had collided. Then, to everyone's surprise, the sharp claws broke into several pieces. Yang Chen's fist did not dissipate and directly smashed into the leopard demon's hand. Crack! Accompanied by the sound of bones shattering, the leopard demon's fist was directly shattered, followed by his arm, shoulder, and half of his body. The 2 figures only made contact in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. However, Yang Chen rushed over in one piece, while the leopard demon that blocked him only had half of its body left. Junior Leopard. Behind Yang Chen, there was suddenly a heart-wrenching scream, and then a huge pressure directly enveloped the top of Yang Chen's head. Yang Chen's body stopped, but in this moment, an expert had already rushed in front of Yang Chen and stopped Yang Chen. He did not attack from behind Yang Chen, because he was afraid that he could not destroy Yang Chen in one move, and Yang Chen would escape. Of course, there was another consideration. The expert was afraid that he could not control his attack and kill Yang Chen, which would be very bad. It was not allowed to kill people in the city. If he attacked from behind Yang Chen, once he used too much force, he would be doomed eternally. In this way, Yang Chen's retreat was blocked, and Yang Chen could only wait to be captured. Yang Chen, who was blocked in the way of survival, also began to fight desperately. Boom! Another punch was thrown out, and this punch directly hit the figure that surpassed him. The one who rushed over was also a leopard-head monster race cultivator. Yang Chen made a move behind him, but he turned around in a hurry. With a bang, his palms and Yang Chen's fists intersected, making a huge explosion. A force as heavy as a mountain came crashing down with earth-shattering force. The leopard demon did not expect that Yang Chen would have such great power. With a click, even with the spiritual power to protect his body, his palm still became bloody in an instant, as if it was hit by a huge hammer, and his bones were all broken. Fortunately, he noticed that something was wrong and immediately retreated, so that he could offset a large part of the force, and the other parts of his body were not hurt. But this time, it directly made him break out in a cold sweat. This calf turned out to have such great power. However, Yang Chen's 2 consecutive attacks had already allowed the 3 Yuanying stage masters who were chasing after him to catch up. If Yang Chen did not leave, he would fall into the encirclement of the 4 Yuanying stage monster cultivators. Without thinking about it, Yang Chen had already fled in a panic. Many people saw this scene, but no one would doubt that Yang Chen had a premeditated plan. The direction in which Yang Chen escaped was the direction of the strange pool in the center of the city. The 4 Yuanying stage monster cultivators would not let Yang Chen escape in this situation, and they chased after him without stopping. There was no illumination device in the city at night, and it was dark. Yang Chen released his spiritual awareness to observe the surrounding environment, and the 4 Yuanying stage monster cultivators were obviously better than Yang Chen. They could see everything in the dark with their instincts. In some cases, the monster race had an innate advantage over humans. The city was very big, but Yang Chen let go of his speed and ran wildly. It did not take too long to escape from his side to the pool. In less than half an hour, he had already escaped to the vicinity. Of course, in the process of escaping, Yang Chen also showed his strength very appropriately. The guy who chased the fastest had already been crippled by him. Another leopard monster in the early Yuanying stage was punched by Yang Chen after a sudden pause, and his sternum was almost broken. Fortunately, the monster race paid the most attention to body refining when cultivating, so it did not lead to a disaster. However, he still did not escape the fate of vomiting blood and being injured. A calf in the early Jedan stage, under the siege of 4 Yuanying stage monster cultivators and a late Jedan stage master, crippled the late Jedan stage guy and injured 2 Yuanying stage masters. Don't look at how Yang Chen was now running for his life, but if this record was taken out, it would not be him who would lose face. However, the 4 Yuanying stage masters must take down Yang Chen this time. Otherwise, they would not be able to explain to the companion who was crippled by Yang Chen. It would also make many people in the city doubt their strength, which would threaten the living environment of the leopard clan. In this kind of thing, they would never take the lives and treatment of the whole clan as a joke. Running all the way, Yang Chen's figure had already rushed to the vicinity of the pool. The several monster cultivators behind him were in a hurry to catch up, but they did not notice this. Suddenly, Yang Chen's figure came to a sudden stop. This time, the 4 masters who were chasing after him were on guard, and they all made a move. Everyone held back, but if the attacks of the 4 people hit at the same time, Yang Chen would definitely lose his ability to act directly. In the face of the attack, Yang Chen did not dodge, but turned and rushed directly to the guy closest to him. Chapter 600. Bang 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 bang. Almost at the same time, the attacks of the 4 people all fell on Yang Chen's body. Yang Chen's face also showed a painful look, and the blood in his mouth was sprayed on the face of the opposite master. Caught off guard, he was sprayed by Yang Chen's blood, and the opposite leopard monster's spirit power was shocked, and the blood was directly shaken, but at this moment Yang Chen actually hugged him by the waist. Wondering how Yang Chen would do this, he suddenly found that Yang Chen suddenly opened his spiritual awareness and stimulated the surrounding crazily. Still in a daze, he suddenly saw the surrounding environment, and suddenly his heart was broken. This turned out to be a spiritual awareness forbidden zone. Yang Chen actually opened his spiritual awareness crazily here. A huge force pulled Yang Chen towards the pool, and Yang Chen's hands were holding the unlucky leopard monster. The 2 of them hugged each other and flew into the pool. The other 3 leopard monsters watched their companions being held by Yang Chen and fell into the pool together, but there was nothing they could do. With a splash, the bodies of Yang Chen and the leopard monster fell into the water, only causing a small ripple, not even a splash of water, and disappeared without a trace. The 3 companions of the leopard monster, where would they dare to use their spiritual awareness to explore the situation of their companions? The Yuanying stage masters who were swallowed here were not one or two. Everyone understood that once Yang Chen and his companions fell in, there was no possibility of them coming out again. Although Yang Chen was also dead, it seemed that Yang Chen, a little guy in the early Jedan stage, had abolished a Yuanying stage master, flew a master in the late Jedan stage, seriously injured an early Yuanying stage master, and slightly injured another Yuanying stage master. Now he pulled a Yuanying stage master to die together. In any case, Yang Chen was indeed worthy of the word strong. Their battle had caused quite a commotion, and countless people had witnessed this scene. Many people were shaking their heads and sighing. Such a valiant little guy with a boundless future was destroyed because he offended these overbearing fellows. But more people were secretly pondering in their hearts. Yang Chen, a little guy in the early stage of Gold Core, could destroy a Yuanying, kill one, and seriously injure another. The power of the Leopard clan did not seem to be as powerful as they showed. There seemed to be other benefits to ponder over. As soon as Yang Chen entered the water, he let go of that guy. A leopard monster in the Yuanying stage is not worth Yang Chen's desperate. He didn't even open the body protection of the Golden Bell. Those guys didn't hurt him at all. The so-called injury and vomiting blood was simply made by Yang Chen himself. The key was that he now had an excuse to enter the pool that no one would suspect. Although this was a dangerous place in the eyes of many monster cultivators, Yang Chen believed that this was definitely the place where the first wood true essence was most likely to exist. In a dangerous place, Yang Chen certainly had to concentrate on dealing with it. The Golden Bell had been urged to the extreme by Yang Chen. Even if it was the old tree demon, it was estimated that it would be impossible to hurt Yang Chen at once. Unexpectedly, the terrifying blow that Yang Chen expected did not come. On the contrary, his body had been sinking. Although the spiritual awareness threads had already been explored, it had not been explored to the end. In the water, the scope of the exploration of the spiritual awareness was reduced by many times. The huge gravitational pull pulled Yang Chen's body, and kept going down. After a while, Yang Chen discovered that although his body was still immersed in the liquid, it was no longer in the water. The water in the pool was just a cover on top of these liquid. Now Yang Chen could completely confirm this. Not far away, the body of the leopard monster was still struggling, trying to escape the huge attraction from below. However, no matter how he struggled, it was futile. Yang Chen didn't think about struggling at all, so there was no physical injury. On the contrary, the leopard monster kept struggling inside, but there was some strange blood on his body. Yang Chen could clearly feel it with his spiritual awareness. This kind of liquid could isolate the spiritual awareness more than pure water. Even if it was Yang Chen, he could only detect the movement within a few dozen feet around him. His spiritual awareness could no longer be explored further. This huge attraction from the bottom was completely aimed at the spiritual awareness. However, the three purities secret art that Yang Chen cultivated was too powerful. Although his spiritual awareness explored the pool at the beginning and was attracted by the pool, after Yang Chen entered the water and replaced it with his spiritual awareness threads, there was no such sense of bondage. If Yang Chen didn't need this attraction to guide him, Yang Chen could break away from this attraction to the spiritual awareness at any time. The leopard monster seemed very innocent. After entering the water, his spiritual awareness was already out of control, and it was impossible to take it back. Along the way, Yang Chen silently calculated the depth of the sinking, and in the time of half an incense stick, he had sunk a few hundred feet. What surprised Yang Chen was that in such a deep underground, he could even occasionally notice that there were huge roots in the surrounding land when he happened to touch the edge of the liquid. The earth escape technique could only be courting death here. He would be directly locked by these strong plant roots and would no longer be able to move. In the same way, the wood escape technique was the same. In the surrounding land, there was a power of the metal attribute. Metal restrains wood, and coming in meant death. The 5 elements escape technique could not reach this depth at all, and the only way seemed to be down from the pool. However, because no one had ever gone up there before, this place had become a forbidden area. So far, Yang Chen has not been aware of any killing move. Even some unknown attacks caused by the struggling of the leopard monster were limited, far from the point of killing people. There was a lot of blood coming out, but it was only a flesh wound. For a Yuanying stage master, it was not a big deal at all. It may be that the spiritual awareness was stimulated and opened, and the leopard monster also noticed the situation on Yang Chen's side. Yang Chen didn't move at all, sinking with the gravity. He was completely unharmed. He now immediately learned to use it, and suddenly he was no longer attacked. The 2 people sank so quickly for a full incense stick of time. It was calculated that they were thousands of feet deep in the ground. Suddenly, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness found that it had reached the bottom. However, the bottom of this liquid was not the ground. Yang Chen and the leopard monster just touched the bottom of the liquid, and suddenly their bodies were loose. There was no gravity anymore, but their bodies fell involuntarily and fell into a huge space. Pring pring, the 2 of them were like 2 stones falling into a large lake below. Immediately, a pure and unparalleled power of first wood, like a fierce beast, madly drilled into the 2 bodies. Chapter 601. Just at the moment of contact with these strange liquids, Yang Chen's whole body seemed to be torn apart, and the severe pain passed directly from the skin to the bone marrow and to the mind. The pure first wood true essence qi. At the moment of contact, Yang Chen immediately realized that what he fell in was not a strange liquid, it was clearly the first wood true essence. What was hard to imagine was that the amount of first wood true essence here was too large, and the form of its existence was too shocking. The first wood true essence, which was originally only in the form of spiritual qi true essence, had condensed into a liquid here. How could this be believed? First wood true essence, Yang Chen finally understood why that guy would use a vein to describe the first wood true essence when he died. At that time, Yang Chen naively thought that there was a thin first wood true essence like an underground spirit vein. He did not expect it to be such a big lake. However, now it was impossible to guess how these first wood true essences were formed. The crazy first wood true essence, under the huge pressure of being compressed into a liquid, rushed into the bodies of the 2 people who fell down. No matter what kind of spiritual power Yang Chen had in his body, it was directly pressed back into his dantian by this rich first wood true essence. His body seemed to be torn apart, and every corner was crazily pouring in the first wood true essence. Just from touching the liquid surface and then entering the liquid, Yang Chen's whole person became a first wood attribute. If someone used their spiritual awareness to explore at this time, they would definitely think that Yang Chen was a pure first wood cultivator. From the inside to the outside, Yang Chen revealed a strong and incomparable first wood aura. Just after a short contact, there was such a change. Yang Chen finally understood how those Yuanying stage masters who fell down died. Bathing in this kind of first wood true essence spiritual solution, not to mention the Yuanying stage masters, even the masters of the Deshang stage, such as Hua Wanting, could not escape death. Water could carry a boat, but it could also overturn it. Drinking water was very comfortable, but if there was too much water, it could drown people. The reason was the same. Although the wood attribute masters could absorb the first wood true essence, such a huge amount of first wood true essence could directly explode people. The leopard demon that fell with Yang Chen was no longer breathing. He was not of the wood attribute. At the moment of contact with such a thick first wood true essence spiritual solution, it was equivalent to bearing the attack of that kind of pressure. In an instant, he turned into a leopard demon of the wood attribute. Then, he exploded and turned into a dust smoke, leaving no trace. The reason why Yang Chen could hold on until now was because of his wood attribute spiritual energy. In any case, Yang Chen also cultivated the first wood spirit power, and the spirit power was the attribute of the Penglai divine wood. Even if the pressure was huge, he could hold on for a while longer than the leopard monster. However, if Yang Chen had no other way, then Yang Chen's end would not be much different from the leopard demon. The only difference was when it happened first. The guy who told Yang Chen that there was the first wood true essence here, he didn't know if he didn't expect this situation, or if he had already arranged it, waiting for Yang Chen to throw himself into the net. It was to avenge himself after his death. It was just that that person had already died, and Yang Chen couldn't know what he was thinking. Yang Chen had the first wood true secret art. He got it from someone on the Immortal executioner stage. However, in the face of such a huge amount of first wood true essence spiritual solution, it was too late to absorb it, and it was impossible to absorb this amount of first wood true essence spiritual solution. In a flash, Yang Chen's mind quickly flashed through several processing methods, but the most reliable one was still the Penglai divine wood in the medicine garden. The reason why the Penglai divine wood was called a divine wood was because it was the purest kind of spirit wood besides the first wood true essence. At the same time, it was also the most difficult kind of spirit wood to cultivate. The reason why it was difficult to cultivate was because there was a lack of enough first wood spirit power that could make the Penglai divine wood look up to. Now, the first wood true essence spiritual solution was simply the best thing to cultivate the Penglai divine wood. After making a decision in an instant, Yang Chen immediately began to control it. The first wood true essence spiritual solution entered Yang Chen's body, and was immediately controlled by Yang Chen to enter the Penglai divine wood forest in the medicine garden. Now in the Penglai divine wood forest, there were dozens of Penglai divine woods. After the last thunder pomegranate absorbed enough thunder to nourish it, for a long time, the Penglai divine woods did not change much. This pure and incomparable first wood true essence spiritual solution approached the roots of the Penglai divine wood. Yang Chen immediately noticed that the Penglai divine wood seemed to suddenly have a spiritual nature, and the feeling of the whole burst out. Suddenly, the spiritual solution around Yang Chen seemed to suddenly disappear, and a vacuum area appeared. In this gap, Yang Chen directly took out the sword embryo of the first wood flying sword. With a thought, the sword embryo was directly restored to the original Penglai divine wood trunk and the length of the main root. The thickest trunk of the Penglai divine wood was dozens of feet long, and the length of the main root was several times this. This time, it reached the bottom of the first wood true essence spiritual solution lake, and the height was more than enough. It smoothly pushed Yang Chen out of the spiritual solution. With a long sigh, Yang Chen's cold sweat came out at this time. If he delayed for a while, maybe he would directly be blown up by the first wood true essence spiritual solution. Now, the pure first wood true essence spiritual solution had the first wood flying sword embryo as an intermediary. When it was passed to Yang Chen, it was no longer so stressful. And with the Penglai divine wood absorbing in the pure bottle medicine garden, Yang Chen could already confirm that his life was not in danger. Standing at the top of the first wood flying sword embryo, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness thread was sent out again. It was strange to say that in this place, the pulling force against the spiritual awareness disappeared without a trace, and Yang Chen could easily detect the surrounding situation. It was not a very large space, basically the same size as the pool above, with a radius of dozens of feet. However, the depth of the first wood true essence spiritual solution was somewhat shocking. Standing at the top of the first wood flying sword embryo, which was more than 200 feet high, it was only 1 foot higher than the surface of the liquid. It could be imagined how much first wood true essence spiritual solution there was here. Above was the 10,000 trees forest, and there must be a formation that gathered the little bit of first wood true essence produced in the entire 10,000 trees forest here. It was not known how many years it took to have such a scale. Since there was such a strong first wood true essence, if Yang Chen did not cultivate the first wood true secret art, it would be too sorry for himself. What was the purpose of coming here to adventure, Was it not to absorb the first wood true essence to cultivate the first wood true secret art? Chapter 602. For Yang Chen, if he cultivated the first wood true secret art in this realm, even if he let go and casually absorb the first wood true essence, it would only take him a year's worth of spiritual power. At present, this huge lake of first wood true essence spiritual solution, even if there were 10 or 8 great principal golden immortals who wanted to cultivate the first wood true secret art, it could completely support it. With so much first wood true essence spiritual solution, instead of giving it to the monster race, it was better to give it to Yang Chen. The Penglai Divine would needed a lot of first wood true essence to irrigate. Wasn't this a great opportunity? In addition, the first wood true essence was also a rare good thing for the medicine garden's purified bottle. In particular, he could take advantage of so much first wood true essence to thoroughly refine the medicine garden's purified bottle. Of course, the most important first wood flying sword's sword embryo also needed further sacrificial refining. However, what was sacrificial refining? Wasn't it just using a lot of true essence to scour the inside of the sword embryo little by little? Now Yang Chen wanted to use the first wood flying sword's sword embryo to absorb the first wood true essence. Wasn't it a logical process? The first wood flying sword's sword embryo returned to its original size, and Yang Chen could even easily sit on the top to cultivate. The huge trunk was an excellent platform for cultivation. The huge first wood true essence, along the first wood flying sword's sword embryo, part of it entered the body of Yang Chen, and part of it entered the purified bottle medicine garden. After being purified by the purified bottle, it was absorbed by the Penglai Divine Wood. Fortunately, it was the Penglai Divine Wood. If it was replaced by any other first wood species, in the face of this kind of concentrated first wood true essence, it would also end up exploding. In the process of slowly absorbing the first wood true essence, Yang Chen was also distracted to observe the changes in the medicine garden's purified bottle, in case of a carelessness, destroying the medicine garden's purified bottle. Seeing that the liquefied first wood true essence entered the medicine garden, it was directly sent to the 5th soil layer at the foot of the Penglai Divine Wood. Subsequently, the Penglai Divine Wood, as if it was alive, began to grow wildly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was only a day and a night, and the Penglai Divine Wood was thicker than a finger. This was the Penglai Divine Wood. When Yang Chen used the 5th earth layer to sacrificial refine the medicine garden, it was only to make the Penglai Divine Wood take root more stable. As for growth, it was only the occasional sacrificial refining of the medicine garden that had the opportunity. On weekdays, even during the decades when Yang Chen was in seclusion, the Penglai Divine Wood in the medicine garden had never changed. Even if there was, it could not be seen at all. However, under the irrigation of this pure first wood true essence, one day and one night, the trunk became thicker. Although the change did not seem to be big, in normal times, if the Penglai Divine Wood wanted to thicken a finger, it was impossible without 100 years of effort. The first wood true essence entered the medicine garden and was not completely absorbed by the Penglai Divine Wood. It also slowly nourished the other first wood in the medicine garden. Because there was no power of thunder for a long time, the thunder pomegranate tree stopped growing. Under the nourishment of this powerful first wood true essence, it began to grow wildly again. The flowers withered and bloomed. Almost every day and night, the thunder pomegranate tree would experience a growth cycle, adding 1 year of age. More than 20 thunder pomegranates began to slowly become thicker and taller. This was not a complete sacrificial refining process. Whether it was for the first wood flying sword embryo or the pure bottle medicine garden, this time it was just a simple process of spiritual power brushing. The spiritual power of the pure bottle medicine garden had already been filled up unknowingly, and even the looming portal in the medicine garden had changed a little. However, Yang Chen did not pay attention to this now. He was already immersed in the pleasure of cultivating the first wood true secret art. The main purpose of coming here was to cultivate the first wood true secret art and condense the first wood golden Dan. The others, no matter how much, were extra. Autumn went to winter. Yang Chen had been cultivating for a full half a year on the first wood true essence spiritual solution lake. There was no change in the 4 seasons at all here. The sun rose and set, there was not even a bit of light. Yang Chen still relied on the operation of the spiritual power in his body to judge the time. He had already cultivated the 5th earth 7th metal 10th water secret art of the great yin and yang 5 elements secret art. Now he was cultivating the first wood true secret art, but also in this place where the first wood true essence was liquefied. Even if Yang Chen was a non-wood attribute pig, it was enough for him to get a glimpse of the door, not to mention that Yang Chen was a Hotian full attribute monster. The completion of the first wood true secret art could only be described as a matter of course. When the complete first wood true secret art was finally completed, Yang Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, his sea of consciousness had more than doubled again. The original entity of the Penglai Divine Wood, although it still maintained the shape of the Penglai Divine Wood, the aura that escaped was completely the aura of the first wood true essence. The towering pillar of the Penglai Divine Wood was more than several times thicker than the original, and it abruptly pushed Yang Chen's sea of consciousness up to hundreds of feet. Even though the size of his sea of consciousness did not increase, it was still at least twice as big as it was before. Wood gave birth to fire, and the change of the Penglai Divine Wood directly triggered the change of the 2 fire dragons of the yin-yang heaven burning fire. In the end, this change occurred with the change of the first wood pillar. The length of the 2 fire dragons was also stretched from the original 100 feet to 200 feet. The flames on the body were raging, but there was no change. The spiritual awareness began to improve again, until it reached the peak of the early Dashang stage, and then it stopped. However, Yang Chen did not have time to feel the changes in the sea of consciousness and the true essence. Then, the first wood true essence, which was already at the peak of the foundation stage, began to smoothly enter the process of solidifying Dan. In the body, the first wood spirit power rushed to the dantian, and the meridians were instantly empty, but they were soon completely filled by the influx of the first wood true essence from the outside world. Solidifying Dan was a process that required a lot of spirit power, so it took at least half a year to absorb the spirit power to meet the massive spirit power needed for the spiritual power compression during the solidifying Dan. But for Yang Chen at this time, the outside first wood true essence lake, so far, had only dropped less than 3 points of height. The hundreds of feet deep first wood true essence spiritual solution pool was simply an inexhaustible source of spirit power that could be used at any time. The spirit power needed to solidify Dan made Yang Chen absorb the first wood true essence several times faster. The first wood true essence spiritual solution was like it was free, madly rushing into Yang Chen's body. Of course, these first wood true essence spiritual solutions were indeed free. It would take at least half a year to solidify Dan, but on this huge first wood true essence spiritual solution pool, it took only 1 month to complete the process that would take 6 months to complete. Chapter 603. A turquoise golden Dan, formed in the dantian of Yang Chen, spun and spun, exuding a pure first wood aura. This was the first golden Dan of Yang Chen's great yin and yang 5 elements secret art. At the moment of condensing, the surrounding space even trembled. The first wood true essence spiritual solution below, at least a thick layer, was directly absorbed by Yang Chen into the body and filled in the first wood golden Dan. The first wood golden Dan almost instantly absorbed this large amount of first wood true essence spiritual solution, and then the size of the golden Dan swelled like a balloon, quickly surpassing the 3rd fire and 4th fire golden Dan, becoming the largest one. With this alone, the cultivation of the first wood spiritual power directly surpassed the 3rd fire and 4th fire, becoming the dominant spiritual power. Yang Chen's body also began to change. He was originally a cultivator with a fire attribute. Now, with a glance, one could determine that Yang Chen was a cultivator with a wood attribute. The Golden Dan was formed, and the sea of consciousness began to change again after only a month. This time, it was the promotion to the Jedon stage. Not only did the sea of consciousness not increase, but it also shrank a little. Everything that built the sea of consciousness was directly condensed again, shrinking a bit, becoming 4/5 of the original size. The degree of conciseness of the spiritual awareness was higher than before, and the whole structure was more stable than before. After shrinking, it seemed that with the increase of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, it began to slowly return to its original size. The spiritual awareness also climbed all the way to the limit of the peak early Deshang stage, only one step away from entering the realm of the middle Deshang stage. After condensing the Dan, Yang Chen, the wood attribute dominated and began to spontaneously absorb the first wood true essence here. Although the speed was not as terrifying as when the Dan was formed, it was several times faster than when the Dan was condensed before. Because of the improvement of Yang Chen's cultivation base, the speed of the first wood flying sword and the medicine garden Penglai divine wood's absorption of the first wood true essence spiritual solution also doubled. Yang Chen even had an illusion that his own first wood true essence spiritual power had become the first wood true essence spiritual solution, and it had a vague connection with the first wood true essence spiritual solution outside. In the dark, Yang Chen had a feeling that he could make these first wood true essence spiritual solutions suddenly erupt at any time and destroy this place. All around was the first wood true essence, and Yang Chen seemed to have expanded a lot in this environment. Soon, Yang Chen was keenly aware that someone was staring at this place, and it was with hostility. With Yang Chen's sensitivity to the murderous aura, the guy staring at him was by no means a long time ago, but just stared at him. It must be that when Yang Chen Dan was condensed, Dan, Master True Essence, stage, Yang True King, it Chen found. Mountain. By Yang Realm Master Chen, a Emperor of the Wood, he Dan Yang, Stage Master Chen Realm, the city was jointly managed by two masters of the Deshang stage monster race. This city, to put it bluntly, was an Immortal's cave, which could also be collected by the powerful. The Immortal's cave left by an ascended guy, without the right technique, it could never be collected. There was only one end for forcibly collecting it, that was, the jade and stone would be destroyed together. The reason why Yang Chen was so sure was because of the first wood true essence spiritual solution lake under his feet. In fact, with so much first wood true essence spiritual solution accumulated here, as long as he was not careful when collecting it, the city above would be directly blown to ashes by the outbreak of the first wood true essence. If the Immortal's cave had been collected, so much first wood true essence spiritual solution, it was simply a treasure for cultivation. How could it be left to Yang Chen so easily? If the real Immortal's cave had been collected, so much first wood true essence spiritual solution, it was simply the treasure of cultivation, how could it be so easily left to Yang Chen? It was not a fun thing to be stared at by one or two masters of the Deshang realm with hostility. It was not a fun thing to be stared at by one or two masters of the Deshang realm with hostility. The first wood true essence spiritual solution lake under Yang Chen's feet suddenly began to ripple. The originally very stable lake surface seemed to be stirred by a big hand. The liquid surface was tumbling all the way, and it seemed that something was about to surge up. "Who?" Yang Chen shouted, but his figure did not move. "Little friend, don't panic." An unfamiliar voice suddenly rang out, but it did not have any pressure or imposing aura at all. It sounded like an ordinary old man, and it gave people a lot of confidence. "We don't have any ill intentions. We?" A thought immediately flashed in Yang Chen's mind. There was more than one master. It seemed that only the two masters of the Deshang realm who managed the city could appear and make a sound here. The first wood true essence spiritual solution under Yang Chen's feet was boiling more and more, showing an extremely unstable state. It seemed that the next moment, the huge first wood true essence spiritual solution lake would suddenly erupt. Two masters of the Deshang realm, their spiritual awareness appeared here. To say that they did not covet this first wood true essence spiritual solution, Yang Chen would never believe it. Don't get me wrong. Yang Chen's reaction made the two city masters of the Deshang realm panic for a while. Once Yang Chen noticed that something was wrong and detonated the entire first wood true essence spiritual solution lake, maybe the two masters of the Deshang realm could still survive, but the hundreds of thousands of monster cultivators in the entire city would be directly wiped out, leaving nothing behind. It was another city master of the Deshang realm who spoke urgently. At this time, they could not covet these first wood true essence spiritual solutions. It was more important to appease Yang Chen. We have no malicious intent, the later city master quickly said. We just found the atmosphere here abnormal, so we came to check it out. There is no other meaning. This is your opportunity, we will never interfere. Opportunity? Yang Chen suddenly sneered. If I didn't have a magic weapon that could restrain this first wood true essence spiritual solution, this would be my burial place. We know that you were forced to come in, those who chased you, we will give you a thorough explanation. The previous city master listened to the resentful voice of Yang Chen and said directly, "Explanation?" Yang Chen still had that disdainful voice. What explanation? How do you explain it? Wait a moment. The first city master directly dropped a sentence, and then there was no sound. However, Yang Chen did not dare to relax at all. Under the spying of the two masters of the Deshang realm, Yang Chen had to maintain absolute caution. At the same time, he was also guessing in his heart, what were the thoughts of these two city masters? So much first wood true essence spiritual solution, they actually watched it, which could only explain one thing. They did not have the ability to collect it, and at the same time, they were also afraid that a strong collection would cause an explosion. This was the bargaining capital of Yang Chen now. While thinking, the time had not even passed the time for a stick of incense, there was a chaotic sound above his head. Yang Chen looked up subconsciously and saw a few figures falling from the liquid above like dumplings, directly falling into the first wood true essence spiritual solution lake. Chapter 604. These figures were very familiar. They were clearly the leopard monsters who chased Yang Chen before he jumped into the pool. 3 Yuanying stage, 1 Jidan stage, they directly dealt with Yang Chen that day. However, they did not have the ability of Yang Chen to be able to move freely in the first wood true essence. As soon as the figure fell into the first wood true essence lake, it made a shrill scream. After a few screams, the first wood true essence invaded their bodies, and they could no longer bear it and directly exploded. The flesh and blood of the 4 leopard monsters quickly turned into dust that could no longer be seen. The voice of the first city lord, who had just spoken, came again. "Little friend, are you satisfied with this explanation?" He did not move, and the guy who chased him was thrown into ashes by the city lord in front of him. If Yang Chen said that he was not satisfied, it would be a bit too much. Satisfied? Yang Chen's face was instantly full of smiles. "I am very satisfied." "It's good that you are satisfied." The voice of the first city lord came again. "I don't know what instructions the city lord has." Yang Chen's voice eased a lot this time, but the first wood true essence lake under his feet was still in the kind of posture, and he did not dare to relax a bit. Instructions? No. The first city lord also seemed to know that it was impossible to gain the trust of Yang Chen at this time, and directly replied, "There is no instruction, you can cultivate here at will. Here is the first wood true essence spiritual solution, you can absorb as much as you want. If you can absorb it all, it is also your ability. When you feel that it is enough, you can come out." "Can I absorb it all?" Yang Chen immediately realized something from the words of the first city lord, and asked loudly. You can absorb it as you wish. The voice of the second city lord came from the other side. Your opportunity, you grasp it yourself, take care of yourself. After that, the two city lords no longer spoke. It seemed that they were no longer here. However, Yang Chun knew that they had definitely been monitoring this place. From the attitude of the two, Yang Chun guessed that this first wood true essence spiritual solution lake should have caused a lot of trouble for them. Sometimes, delicious food wasn't just food. When it exceeded a certain amount, it could even cause a person to choke to death. Similarly, the same was true for the first wood true essence spiritual solution. Perhaps at the beginning, these first wood true essences were the most wonderful tonic for the city, but when the amount of first wood true essence spiritual solution exceeded a certain amount, it would be a disaster for the entire city. Now the entire city was located on this huge first wood true essence spiritual solution lake. Once the first wood true essence spiritual solution exploded, the entire city would turn into flying ash. It could be said that this city in the tree was in danger of exploding at any time. As the city lord, the two Dashang stage monster cultivators could do nothing about it. It's not that they didn't think of a way, but even if it was the wood attribute monster race with the highest cultivation base, even a tree monster in the late Yuanying stage, when they entered here, it was inevitable that the first wood true essence spiritual solution would enter their body and explode, not to mention the little guys of other attribute. In this regard, the two city lords have been at a loss, but they could not easily move the formation here. They could only struggle to maintain it in the city. The movement of Yang Chen's condensing Dan alarmed them. They suddenly discovered that someone could completely ignore these first wood true essence spiritual solution, and could even absorb it, which suddenly gave them hope. Especially when Yang Chun said that he had a magic weapon that could restrain the first wood true essence spiritual solution, the two almost coincidentally began to think crookedly. If this magic weapon was in their hands, wouldn't they not have to worry about the disaster of these first wood true essence spiritual solution? However, Yang Chen was too careful. As soon as he discovered their aura, he immediately controlled the first wood true essence spiritual solution to the edge of the outbreak. As long as he thought about it, everything here would be wiped out with Yang Chen. This kind of behavior that would rather be a broken jade than a disorderly tile directly suppressed the two city lords, and they did not dare to act rashly. Of course, they soon knew how Yang Chen came in. After all, the movement that night was not small, and many people saw it. In order to calm Yang Chen's anger and comfort Yang Chen, the two did not hesitate to sacrifice the three leopard monsters in the Yuanying stage, and at the same time, the guy in the Jedon stage. Compared with solving the disaster of the first wood true essence spiritual solution lake, what were a few little guys in the Yuanying stage? Dealing with them, not only could they stabilize Yang Chen, but they could also bring a good reputation to the city lords. Why not? Yang Chen was quiet again, but Yang Chen knew that the two city lords must be staring at this place all the time, and would not relax at all. Yang Chen did not care, and continued to sit above the first wood flying sword, silently absorbing the first wood true essence spiritual solution. There was too much first wood true essence spiritual solution, even if Yang Chen's cultivation base after the Jedon stage. The absorption of the first wood true essence spiritual solution was only a drop in the bucket for such a large and deep first wood true essence spiritual solution lake. The city lord let Yang Chen absorb it at will, and Yang Chen certainly would not let go of such an opportunity. However, even if he was allowed to absorb it, how much could he absorb? Suddenly, a thought appeared in Yang Chen's mind. Since this first wood true essence spiritual solution has now condensed into a liquid, then the wine gourd could hold any liquid. Could it also hold this first wood true essence spiritual solution? Holding the gourd in his hand, Yang Chen began to hesitate. After all, in this gourd, there was a lake of the four seas mysterious coral liquid and a lake of the distiller's yeast. For Yang Chen, it could be said to be a precious thing. If he was not careful and damaged the gourd, it would not be worth the loss. Fortunately, this did not prevent Yang Chen from experimenting with a little first wood true essence spiritual solution. As long as the amount could be controlled, then the absorption should be very safe. Carefully holding the gourd, Yang Chen's consciousness instantly immersed in the gourd, and began to control the gourd to carefully collect a little first wood true essence spiritual solution. Whoosh, a green shadow flew directly out of the first wood true essence spiritual solution lake and flew into the gourd. What surprised Yang Chen was that the gourd did not have a castle, and the first wood true essence spiritual solution was still the first wood true essence spiritual solution, and it did not explode. This fully explained that Yang Chen could easily collect these first wood true essence spiritual solutions. With this understanding, Yang Chen did not rest, and directly began to control the gourd to absorb the first wood true essence spiritual solution. A green water chain began to be produced from the first wood true essence spiritual solution lake, and quickly flew towards the mouth of the gourd. This time, the speed of absorption was more than doubled. In a short period of time, the first wood true essence spiritual solution absorbed by the gourd had reduced the height of the lake by more than an inch. In the gourd, another place opened up a new deep pit. In the deep pit, it was completely filled with this dark green first wood true essence spiritual solution, but there was no explosive instability. Seeing this scene, Yang Chen's face showed a smile again. Such a large first wood true essence spiritual solution lake is finally my own. Chapter 605. After the addition of the gourd, the speed of collecting the first wood true essence spiritual solution was several times faster. Although the huge spiritual solution lake was hundreds of feet deep, under the control of Yang Chen, the gourd could collect the first wood true essence spiritual solution with a depth of 10 feet in one day. This kind of good thing could only be found in the gourd, and Yang Chen could use it anytime, anywhere. Chunyang Palace also had the old tree demon, and then he would see the little monstrous talent Mu Bo, plus the wood attribute Sun Qingxue. These would be precious gifts in the future. However, in the process of collecting, Yang Chen did not dare to relax his vigilance at all, and always kept the first wood true essence spiritual solution on the edge of the outbreak. The two Deshang stage city lords, who could guarantee that they would not be tempted. Once they wanted to grab the gourd in Yang Chen's hands, Yang Chen could detonate it at any time. This was also a deterrent. Even if the first wood true essence spiritual solution had no use for the two, this gourd could collect the first wood true essence spiritual solution, so that the city would no longer have any worries. In any case, the two guys would not let Yang Chen leave like this. The 100 feet deep first wood true essence spiritual solution lake, Yang Chen collected it for more than 100 days, nearly 5 months. Seeing the deep first wood true essence spiritual solution lake reduced inch by inch, and now there was only a depth of less than a few feet. While the gourd collected the first wood true essence spiritual solution, the medicine garden did not stop collecting the first wood true essence. The Penglai divine wood, under the irrigation of the first wood true essence, changed almost every day. In terms of absorbing the first wood true essence, the Penglai divine wood had almost no limit. Every day, the Penglai divine wood grew taller and thicker, and the aura emitted was getting closer and closer to the purest first wood true essence. The Penglai divine wood was the closest to the origin of the first wood. This irrigation with the first wood true essence spiritual solution was simply the best catalyst. In just over half a year, even the worst Penglai divine wood was more robust than the one that Yang Chen used to refine the first wood flying sword. The door in the bottle also became more and more solid, as if it would soon take shape. Of course, the first wood flying sword, which served as a medium, had also undergone tremendous changes. However, the change in the flying sword was mainly in its aura, not its shape. Whether it was Yang Chen's condensing dan or the absorption of the first wood true essence spiritual solution in the medicine garden, they all needed the first wood flying sword as a medium. After such a long time of being washed by the liquid first wood true essence spiritual solution, even if no other materials were added to the first wood flying sword, it was already a pure first wood flying sword. The first wood golden Dan in Yang Chen's dantian was not idle these days, and was still madly absorbing the first wood true essence. This was much faster than Yang Chen refining a small bottle of 5th earth true essence, 10th water true essence and 7th metal true essence, and using the 5th earth true secret art, 10th water true secret art and 7th metal true secret art to continuously enhance these spiritual powers. In just 5 months, Yang Chen's first wood golden Dan had once again expanded a big circle, and the level of spiritual power was close to the peak of the early Jedon stage. It seemed that he would soon enter the middle Jedon stage. However, Yang Chen did not become complacent because of this. Although these spiritual powers were pure first wood true essence, they were not cultivated by himself after all. There was a natural lack of tacit understanding with himself. Only by constantly consolidating could he completely turn these spiritual powers into his own use. Seeing that all the first wood true essence spiritual solution here would be absorbed by Yang Chen also began to ponder how to leave safely. With so much first wood true essence spiritual solution, the 2 city lords would never be happy to watch Yang Chen take it away. In particular, Yang Chen's gourd could collect the first wood true essence spiritual solution, which could solve the hidden dangers of the city forever, so Yang Chen could not easily leave. It was only because Yang Chen was now holding the first wood true essence spiritual solution that could explode at any time, and the 2 city lords were so tolerant of him. On the one hand, it could be regarded as a temporary solution to the hidden dangers of the entire city. On the other hand, it was not waiting for the moment when Yang Chen relaxed his vigilance. At the moment when all the first wood true essence spiritual solution was collected by the gourd, Yang Chen received the gourd into the merit ring. In this world, even if someone killed Yang Chen, it was impossible to get the gourd from the merit ring. However, on Yang Chen's body, there was still an aura of the first wood true essence spiritual solution that was about to erupt. This kind of aura, Yang Chen's own spiritual power could already be simulated. Without the first wood true essence spiritual solution, there was a huge empty space around, and a trace of the first wood true essence spiritual solution came from all directions. Yang Chen understood that this must be the place where the immortal who was beheaded left to collect the first wood true essence. Just because it had been too long, too much first wood true essence had accumulated here and turned into a spiritual solution, so there would be such a change. Yang Chen estimated that the city was discovered by the later monster race too late, so such a situation would happen. In the future, as long as someone could collect the gathered first wood true essence in time and prevent the first wood true essence from gathering too much, all the problems would be solved. There was no light here. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness explored it, and there was nothing else worthy of Yang Chen's action. He put away the first wood flying sword, and then flew directly into the strange liquid. In the liquid, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness could not explore very far, but Yang Chen believed that even the spiritual awareness of the city lord could not pass through this liquid. Yang Chen was hesitating whether he should also collect some of these things. But after thinking about it, he finally chose to give up. All the arrangements here were left by the immortal who was beheaded. Yang Chen had already received the first wood true essence spiritual solution left by him, and had already accepted the reward of the immortal. If he forcibly collected these liquids, once the entire city was affected, this immortal's cave might be destroyed. This kind of practice of doing things without leaving room was not Yang Chen's style. Even if he left a place for the monster race to develop and multiply, Yang Chen was not afraid. Tao, devil, and monster race were all cultivators between heaven and earth, and they were indispensable. Since even the heavenly court left a place for the monster race, Yang Chen would not even have this heart. All the way up, the force that could follow the spiritual awareness and pull people down was long gone. Yang Chen rose smoothly and entered the pool at the beginning. Rising along the pool again, soon Yang Chen came out of the water. However, as soon as he came out of the water, Yang Chen saw two old men, one on the left and one on the right, standing on both sides of the pool, smiling at Yang Chen. At this time, Yang Chen was not afraid of any spiritual awareness being attracted, and directly released his spiritual awareness to explore the surrounding movements. However, under this exploration, Yang Chen was surprised. Within the scope of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness exploration, apart from the two old men in front of him, there was only a large group of Yuanying stage monster race masters in the distance, and there was no one else. Chapter 606. The speed of the shuttle driven by Yang Chen was so fast that even Luo Yuan, who was in the late Dishang stage, could not catch up. That was still when Yang Chen was in the foundation stage. Now Yang Chen had 3 Jedon realms, and his cultivation base was much stronger than before. The speed of the shuttle was almost 50% faster. But what Yang Chen did not expect was that when the second city master showed his true form, the speed was even faster than the shuttle. The huge wings flapped a few times, and suddenly, the distance between the two began to decrease rapidly. Fortunately, Yang Chen was talking to those people at the edge of his own spiritual awareness, and he got up early, at least 100 miles ahead of the second city master. Even if the speed of the second city master was fast, he could not catch up in a short time. At this time, Yang Chen suddenly felt that he was a bit arrogant. In his previous life in the heavenly court, there were also a few bird-type monster races, which were characterized by their speed. Because of the speed of the shuttle, Yang Chen had not even put the masters of the Dishang stage in his eyes. When the second city master caught up, Yang Chen was aware of the crisis. If he couldn't escape this time, he could only use the Immortal beheading blade. However, if Yang Chen destroyed the Immortal beheading blade like this, Yang Chen was still unwilling, so the first choice was still to run away. His spiritual power was pushed to the extreme. Yang Chen raised the speed of the shuttle to the highest level, frantically escaping while making plans. There was only one threat here, the second city master. If he could be solved, then he wouldn't have to worry about anything. This time, Yang Chen did not make the posture of detonating the first wood true essence spiritual solution. When they were in the cave, they were worried that the Immortal's cave would be destroyed. It could also be said that they were afraid to take risk. But outside, even if Yang Chen detonated the first wood true essence spiritual solution, he could only hurt himself. For the second city master who flew faster than himself, it would hardly cause any harm. The two of them chased each other like this, and the distance of 100 miles was now constantly shrinking. In less than 10 days, the distance between the two of them was less than 50 kilometers. Although the second city lord was getting closer and closer, the surprise in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. The little calf in front, how many magic weapons did it have? Not only could it collect the first wood spiritual solution, but it also had such a powerful flying magic weapon. When this situation fell into his eyes, the first reaction of the second city lord was that Yang Chen did not know where he inherited an ancient immortal's cave, otherwise it would be impossible to have so many powerful magic weapons. At the thought of this, the heart of the second city lord also became hot. If he could take the magic weapon on Yang Chen's body for himself, wouldn't he make a lot of money? Once this thought popped up, it could no longer be suppressed. The second city lord thought more. If he chased too fast and caught up with Yang Chen in the 10,000 trees forest, wouldn't a lot of things fall into the eyes of some people? After all, it was not good, and it would make his plan to swallow it alone fall through. The second city lord would not believe that Yang Chen only had the gourd and the flying magic weapon. Even if these two were added to the first city lord, it was reasonable for the second city lord to take a big part of the remaining things. Thinking of this, the speed of the second city lord slowed down a little, keeping a little faster than Yang Chen, but before Yang Chen flew out of the 10,000 trees forest, it was absolutely impossible to catch up with him. he leisurely followed behind Yang Chen, slowly chasing. Yang Chen was just a junior in the Jedon stage. When he was in the Immortal's cave, he could rely on the detonation of the first wood true essence to threaten the two city lords. After coming out, naturally, there was no reliance. Everything was decided by the second city lord. This chase and escape lasted for a month. Seeing that Yang Chen had already seen the edge of the 10,000 trees forest, he suddenly heard the voice of the second city lord. "Kid, you have run for so long, this old man has given you enough face. Why don't you give up? Let's catch up and talk about it, senior." Yang Chen replied directly without thinking, and then continued to fly quickly. However, the other party gave Yang Chen the opportunity to fly out of the 10,000 trees forest. For Yang Chen, that was good news. In addition to the shuttle's ability to fly and escape through water, the earth escape was also very good. The wood attribute in the 10,000 trees forest was too strong, and the wood restrained the earth. Even if Yang Chen wanted to escape through the earth, he had to consider the risk. What's more, there was an array to collect the first wood true essence under the forest. Yang Chen did not dare to take the risk of escaping through the earth. But out of the 10,000 trees forest, Yang Chen would not care about this. No matter how fast the second city lord flew, could he escape through the earth faster than the shuttle? As soon as he left the 10,000 trees forest, the shuttle controlled by Yang Chen was much lower, it was almost flying on the ground. The second city lord was just hanging not too far away. He did not know what he was thinking in his heart. Suddenly, Yang Chen paused, his body suspended in the air, facing the rear. He rushed to the second city lord more than 30 miles away and cupped his hands again. "Thank you for the city lord's personal escort, this younger generation junior will leave." As soon as the voice fell, the shuttle, under the control of Yang Chen, drilled vertically into the ground from top to bottom. Looking from afar, it was like a seabird that had already found its prey and flew down from the air to catch fish. In an instant, the second city lord understood Yang Chen's plan, and suddenly became furious. With a flap of his huge wings, his figure suddenly accelerated, and rushed towards Yang Chen. While flying, the second city lord's monster soul blazed, and directly nailed a monster soul mark on Yang Chen's body. Even if Yang Chen went to the sky or into the earth, it was impossible to escape the tracking of his monster soul. This was not all. The moment Yang Chen's figure entered the ground, the second city lord's condensed monster soul had directly blasted into Yang Chen's mind. This kind of monster soul attack had the same wonderful effect as Luo Yuan's soul attack, but it was not the kind of condensation of Luo Yuan's, but it was gathered into a group. However, when the attack power was the most powerful, it was the moment when the condensed monster soul exploded. With a bang, the monster soul controlled by the second city lord directly exploded in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. There was a loud noise in his sea of consciousness, but Yang Chen did not seem to feel it. His current sea of consciousness was so strong that even in his previous life in the spiritual world, it was not so stable. Not to mention the explosion of the monster soul controlled by the second city lord of the Deshang stage, even if it was the ascending blue shadow, it was impossible to hurt Yang Chen at this moment with the monster soul. The figure escaped into the ground almost unaffected, and the second city lord arrived after a few breaths. Feeling that the monster soul mark he planted was getting deeper and deeper, the second city lord almost flew into a rage. He was a monster race flying in the air. Although he had the ability to escape into the ground, it was impossible for him to move freely like Yang Chen underground. He could only follow the monster soul mark on Yang Chen's body and track it bit by bit. Chapter 607. Yang Chen drove the shuttle all the way down, straight into the depth of thousands of feet, and then stopped. At this depth, even the monster soul mark of the second city master became vague. As long as Yang Chen went down a certain distance, even if the second city master was a master of the Deshang stage, he could not detect the position of Yang Chen deep underground, unless he also followed into the ground, and the distance was closer. However, entering the underground, the second city master could not guarantee that his speed could still keep up with Yang Chen. He could only watch Yang Chen stop at the edge of his spiritual awareness exploration, as if to provoke him. Second city master, I am indebted to you again. This younger generation junior is very grateful. Yang Chen's voice sounded directly in the mind of the second city master, but it was clearly transmitted through his own monster soul mark. Want to go? Wishful thinking. As soon as the second city master heard the voice of Yang Chen, he realized that Yang Chen actually relied on his own monster soul mark to talk to himself, and suddenly his waist straightened up a little. As long as there was this monster soul mark, even if Yang Chen escaped thousands of miles away, the second city master could also perceive his direction. Unless Yang Chen stayed underground and became a mouse, as long as he came out, he would face the pursuit of the second city master. Senior, this younger generation junior and the original owner of the Immortal's cave have a lot of history. I can't bear to break his inheritance. The voice of Yang Chen in the mind of the second city master suddenly became fierce. Senior, you turn around now. This younger generation junior will think that nothing has happened. Ignorant junior, boasting shamelessly. The second city master was furious. Yang Chen's words were clearly a threat to let him turn back. However, with the second city master's Deshang stage cultivation base, in the Immortal's cave, except for the first city master, it was simply the first city master. Even the first city master had to discuss things with him, as much as possible. After so many years, how could the second city master accept Yang Chen's attitude? Now the second city master could not wait to catch Yang Chen and directly dismember him to vent his anger. Boom, a shuddering aura came through his own monster soul mark, which carried the momentum. It was simply unheard of by the second city master. Even the second city master of the Deshang stage felt shuddering. This was the aura of a master of the peak Deshang stage, and it was still the aura of a monster race predecessor. The first reaction of the second city master was this, but he soon realized that something was wrong. The first reaction of the second city master was this: Yang Chen, the younger generation junior of the Jedan stage. It was impossible to have this kind of aura. It was impossible for a small Jedan stage junior like Yang Chen to have this kind of aura. Moreover, if Yang Chen was a master who had passed the wind tribulation, he should have ascended long ago. How could he stay in the mortal world? This was the crystallization of the demon power of the monster soul of the first city master. The second city master had reached the peak of the early stage, only one step away from entering the realm of the middle Deshang stage. If there was this demon power crystal in his hand, then it was entirely possible for the second city master to slowly refine this demon power crystal. At that time, not to mention the middle Deshang stage, even if it was the peak Deshang stage, it would still be easy. In an instant, the heart of the second city master burned again. Yang Chen in the underground was really something. He said that he had a relationship with the original owner of the Immortal's cave. Maybe he was the descendant of the original owner of the Immortal's cave. As long as he killed Yang Chen, wouldn't the things that were passed down in his hands be his own? Originally, Yang Chen's intention was to use this demon power crystal to let the second city master retreat, but he did not expect it to directly provoke the greed of the second city master. Hand over the demon power crystal. Hand over the gourd that you used to collect the first wood spiritual solution, and I will spare your life. The threat of the second city master was directly passed to Yang Chen's consciousness through the monster soul mark. If you dare to be stubborn again, I will kill you. Yang Chen was silent this time, and the second city master could not detect any movement of Yang Chen for a long time. However, the monster soul mark showed that Yang Chen was still in the same place and did not leave. He didn't know what he was doing in the same place. The second city master was patient and was ready. Originally, he was chasing Yang Chen, and there was still a little face problem, but now it was a naked interest. Not for anything else, even if it was only for the demon power crystal. the second city master had to come up with his trump card. The Earth escape could not catch up with Yang Chen. Couldn't the second city master use other tricks? The second city master's whole body shook, and hundreds of feathers flew out of his body, flying around. In just a moment, those feathers fell to the ground, and the feather handles were inserted into the ground without exception. Every falling feather had a corresponding position. The second city master waited for the feathers to fall to the ground, and the monster power was stimulated. Suddenly, those feathers formed a large array, surrounding the land of hundreds of feet. "Suppress!" the second city master shouted loudly in his mouth, and the huge monster power suddenly went down along the feathers, surrounding the place covered by the array. Within the scope of the array, all the land became harder than steel. Not to mention the Earth escape, it was already lucky to be able to survive inside. A pair of sharp claws stretched out in the air and grabbed towards the ground. Boom! Like a giant hand that could split open a mountain, the ground that was several dozen zhang deep was directly grabbed up and thrown far away. In a few consecutive times, the second city master had already dug down to a depth of hundreds of feet. With a few more times, Yang Chen would be dug out by the second city master. There is a road to heaven, you don't go, there is no door to hell to break in. The movement of the second city master completely angered Yang Chen. Originally, Yang Chen also felt that it was a bit too much to take the first with spiritual solution of others, but the second city master was so greedy, so he could not blame Yang Chen. There is no injustice, there is no debt. You and I have no grievances in the past, senior. You want to take the life of this younger generation junior again and again. This younger generation junior can only help you. Yang Chen's voice, once again passed into the mind of the second city master through the monster soul mark. The second city master simply turned a deaf ear to Yang Chen's words. Seeing that he could get the monster power crystal of an ascended master, how could he still care about it? His claws accelerated and dug towards the ground. Just when he felt that he was less than 20 feet away from Yang Chen, the second city master suddenly noticed that his monster soul mark seemed to be led by something and thrown into another place. Suddenly, a crazy killing intent directly rushed into the mind of the second city master. The kind of killing intent that carried supreme majesty and could not be blasphemed instantly broke through the sea of consciousness of the second city master. The second city master, who was still looking forward to getting the monster power crystal of the ascended predecessor, ate this killing intent, and suddenly his sea of consciousness was shaken, and his mind was in chaos. In the boundless fear, the second city master fell into a deep pit, unconscious, and could no longer move. Chapter 608. Yang Chen's figure slowly drilled from the hard ground. It had to be said that the second city master still had a set. This set of feathers just happened to restrain the Earth escape. The only drawback was that the speed of starting was slow. If the speed of the Earth escape was a little faster, it could not be trapped. Just now, Yang Chen had been in the same place, but it also gave the second city master a chance, otherwise the second city master would not be so sure to start. However, it was too late to say anything at this moment. Since Yang Chen decided to start, and shouted that there was no injustice, there was no room for reconciliation. In the face of a comatose second city master, even if he was a master of the Deshang stage, Yang Chen also had a way to make him die without knowing why. Of course, Yang Chen did not simply cut off his head with a sword, but used a relatively gentle way. The reason why he did not destroy the body of the second city master was still for the consideration of his master Gao Yu. A Deshang stage monster core and a complete monster beast corpse, for any cultivator, was also a precious puppet material. Although Gao Yu already had a praying mantis beside her, Yang Chen did not mind having another Deshang stage puppet. In particular, the second city master, this guy's body was a goshawk, and his flying speed was so fast that even Yang Chen's current shuttle couldn't match it. Once his master encountered any danger, It was also a fortunate thing to be able to escape in time. If people knew that the reason why Yang Chun left the complete body of the second city master was to find a puppet tool for Gao Yu to escape, it was not known how many people would beat their chests and stomp their feet. It was not a reckless waste of natural resources in such a way. That was a master of the Deshang stage. Speaking of it, perhaps the second city master was the calmest one to die. There was no struggle, no pain, even no feeling. He lost his life in a coma. However, if the second city master had a choice, he would never choose such a stupid way to die. Perhaps he regretted it at the moment before he passed out, or maybe not, who knows. The body of the second city master was directly put into the pure bottle medicine garden. The hundreds of feathers he distributed around lost the support of the second city master's monster power and became ordinary feathers. However, every feather was as tough as steel, yet it was light and maintained the characteristics of feathers. Yang Chen didn't say anything and put these things away. The feathers of the Deshang stage monster, and it seemed that it had been refined by the second city lord. It was definitely a rare good thing for refining a set of formation flags. Senior sister studies formations, so she'll definitely like it. As the city lord, and having controlled the Immortal's cave for many years, the second city lord definitely had countless good things on him. Yang Chun took the Qianquan bag of the second city lord as his own. Because of the actions of the second city master, the terrain had changed greatly. Yang Chun certainly would not stay here for a long time. After a few hasty cleaning up, he drove the shuttle and quickly left the place, flying further north into the ice and snow. Using the inverted sea jasper cup to shield the exploration of spiritual awareness, after a few days of driving the shuttle out at high speed, Yang Chen began to open the Qianquan bag of the second city lord and check the harvest inside. In the eyes was a hill of spirit stones. There were all kinds of grades, low grade, middle grade and high grade, directly piled up into 3 hills. For so many years, all the things in the Immortal's cave had to be purchased and rented with a large number of spirit stones. The net worth of the second city lord made Yang Chen a little jealous. Although there were many spirit stones, it was not enough to make Yang Chen lose his sense of proportion. However, what surprised Yang Chen the most was the dozens of top-grade spirit stones. Each piece of spirit stone had a weight of several jin, which was much heavier than the top-grade spirit stone that Yang Chen got from the old land. When he was chased by Luo Yuan, Yang Chen's top-grade spirit stone had been consumed 5 in 10 years. After giving 2 to his senior sister Gong Sunling, there were only 2 left. Good steel should be used on the edge of the blade. Sometimes, when it was not so critical, Yang Chen would even use some top-grade spirit stones to replace the top-grade spirit stones as the source of spiritual power for the shuttle, in order to save the top-grade spirit stones and save them for use in case of emergency. Now that there were dozens of top-grade spirit stones in hand, Yang Chen no longer had to worry about the source of spiritual power for the shuttle in the future. It could be used openly. Not to mention the top-grade spirit stones, the value of other grades of spirit stones obtained was estimated to be more than 1,000 jin of top-grade spirit stones. But according to the calculation of spirit stones, the entire Chunyang Palace added up was not as many as the second city lord's spirit stones. Could be said that Yang Chen was now one of the rare super-rich people in the mortal world. Yang Chen couldn't help but think that even the second city lord had such a rich net worth. Wouldn't the wealth of the first city lord be even richer? Of course, this thought was only a flash. Even if the origin of the demon Dao was different and the ideas were different, Yang Chen had not yet reached the point of robbing others. There were treasures in the world that others did not know waiting for Yang Chen to get. Yang Chen would not do such a thing. No matter who got such a large number of spirit stones, the mood would not be too bad. The same was true for Yang Chen. He put away the spirit stones happily, and kept them for the day when he would buy some needed materials or cultivation. Next, Yang Chen began to check other gains. It had to be said that the city lord who controlled hundreds of thousands of monster race cultivators was indeed rich to the extreme. Hundreds of thousands of monster race cultivators, for the sake of spirit stones, almost all the good things on the monster plane were plundered and sent to him. All kinds of rare materials, just like garbage, were randomly piled up in a corner of the Qianquan bag, forming a dense hill that was almost pressed. No one had sorted them out for a long time, and these materials had been messily mixed together. For a while, it was even impossible to count what was there. Just a few glances, Yang Chen saw several top-level refining materials, among which there were many fire-attributed materials that Yang Chen needed. Yang Chen must keep the bright ray sword, but relatively speaking, the materials used were not particularly high-level, resulting in the flying sword's grade not too high. With these things, plus the high-level flying sword that he had grabbed from someone before, it was enough to raise the level of the bright ray sword to the same level as Elder Ming's earth attribute flying sword. The materials of the other elements were also available. At least Yang Chen believed that as long as he found the main materials of various attributes of the flying sword, then his own great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword did not need to prepare any auxiliary materials at all, and now he had enough on hand. However, these were not the most surprising things for Yang Chen. When Yang Chen saw the jade slips neatly arranged in the 8 big boxes in the Qianquan bag, his eyes almost stretched out his hand. Chapter 609. 8 boxes, each box contained at least 1,000 pieces of jade slip. Yang Chen picked up a piece, and after the exploration of his spiritual awareness, he was surprised to find that in this piece of jade slips, it actually recorded the cultivation method of a certain race of monsters from the beginning to the advancement to the top level. A piece of jade slip was the cultivation method of a monster race. There were at least 8,000 pieces here. Could it be that there were more than 8,000 monster race cultivation methods of more than 8,000 races? In each box, Yang Chen took a few pieces and looked at it. Only then did he find that there were 6 boxes containing similar things. In other words, there were at least more than 6,000 monster race cultivation method. Among the other 2 boxes, one box contained the refining method of the monster race. The refining method of the monster race was different from that of the cultivators. The cultivators used various materials to refine. Most of the time, the materials of the monster race were only auxiliary. What they really needed to refine was some parts of their bodies. Shi Kuei and Xie Sha refined their own poisonous fangs and big pincer tail stings into their own magic weapons, and the old tree demon was his own branches. Different monster races had different refining methods. Although Yang Chen had contacted a lot of monster race colleagues in the spiritual world and immortal world, he also remembered some advanced refining methods, but like this systematic refining method for different monsters of different races, Yang Chen was definitely not so comprehensive, and there was no such a system from low to high step by step. In the remaining box, there were some refining methods of medicinal pills commonly used by the monster race. The medicinal pills taken by the monster race were different from those taken by the cultivators. In addition to the precious medicinal materials, they could also use a variety of monster cores and devil qi to make medicine. Even the Jiedan and Yuanying of human cultivators could be used as a tonic for the monster race. Although this refining method was rebellious in the eyes of human cultivators, in the eyes of the monster race, it was as natural as the human cultivators using monster cores to make medicine. All kinds of methods were interlinked. It depended on which side the buttocks were sitting on and from which side to speak. Yang Chen, as a former great principal golden immortal, of course, would not find this method unacceptable. On the contrary, a true alchemist would not only refine elixirs for human cultivators. Although Yang Chen already had the top elderly lord alchemy scripture, which already recorded the highest level of alchemy techniques, the alchemy techniques and pill recipes of the demon race were definitely excellent references and collections for Yang Chen. Sometimes, Yang Chen might even be able to combine the strengths of the two to refine a brand new medicinal pill. From this point alone, among the alchemy experts in Yang Chen's previous life's memories, only Taishang Laojun seemed to have such a realm. The others all had their own limitations. Just these 8 boxes of jade slips, in addition to the knowledge of Yang Chen's previous life, were enough to make Yang Chen a master in the cultivation of demonic beasts. Not to mention Shi Kuei and Xiesha, even if it was a ruthless character like the Old Tree Demon and Lan Ning, Yang Chen could still guide them. If these things were brought back to Chunyang Palace could almost immediately be opened to the outside world to absorb the disciples of the Hall of Eccentrics. From then on, it would become a monster race cultivation holy land that could compete with the Immortal's cave in the 10,000 Trees forest. Not only that, because of the combination of Yang Chen's knowledge and the cultivation experience of the cultivators, in some ways, Chunyang Palace could even surpass Banyan Tree City. This was of great significance for the development of Chunyang Palace. Even if it was not realistic to openly recruit monster race disciples for the time being, at least the dozens of masters in the Hall of Eccentrics in Chunyang Palace already had a systematic cultivation method. If they could accept a Deshang stage monster to join the Hall of Eccentrics, the strength of Chunyang Palace would more than double out of thin air. Anyway, now there have been sect of eccentrics that have begun to set up the Hall of Eccentrics. Even the Taishanmen were no exception. At that time, as long as there was a suitable opportunity, Chunyang Palace could become the most expected sect of the monster race, and its future development and growth would not be a problem. To put it bluntly, these jade slips were the inheritance of the monster race. Yang Chen was not sure if the second city lord had all the things here. Maybe the first city lord still had them, but this did not prevent Yang Chen from getting most of the monster race's cultivation inheritance. After collecting these jade slips, Yang Chen continued to rummage through the things in this Qiankuan bag. A lot of magic weapons, good and bad. He didn't know where the second city lord got them. These magic weapons, the good ones could be left by Yang Chen to the disciples of Chunyang Palace, and the bad ones could be sold for spirit stones, which was always a small fortune. However, after packing up so many things, Yang Chen did not see a single spirit medicine. It must be known that whether it was a demon or monster race, they all needed spirit medicine. Since the second city lord had so many high-level materials and spirit stones, it was obviously very abnormal that there were no spirit medicines. Even if the second city lord was a master of the Deshang stage, it was impossible for him to eat all the spirit medicines in his hands. It must be known that there were still alchemy methods on those jade slips. Even if the spirit medicine was good, after all, eating it directly was not as good as refining it into a medicinal pill. The second city lord should not be unaware of this truth. The only possibility was that the second city lord had a medicine garden space, and all the spirit medicines were collected in the medicine garden space. Yang Chen's gaze began to search around for things that might be in the medicine garden. There were too many magic weapons here, and Yang Chen had to screen them one by one. The second city lord was dead, and all the spiritual awareness marks had disappeared completely. Yang Chen could easily penetrate his own spiritual awareness into various magic weapons and explore the use of the magic weapons. Flying sword, weapons, defensive armor, amulets, all kinds of things were there. After exploring hundreds of items, Yang Chen did not find the medicine garden space. Fortunately, Yang Chen had patience and time, enough to look at everything. When Yang Chen explored a transparent crystal ball, he finally found what he was looking for. As soon as his spiritual awareness touched the crystal ball, it entered a huge space. However, the space seemed to have resistance. Yang Chen could only know that there was a large space inside, but he couldn't know what was inside. For the second city lord, this medicine garden was very important, and it had definitely been sacrificially refined many times. Yang Chen only got the body, but he had not yet collected it. It was not so easy to control the medicine garden. Yang Chen's first reaction was to find a way to collect the medicine garden space from the Qiankuan bag. But soon Yang Chen gave up looking for it. The second city lord neither thought that he would die, nor did he want to ascend and leave the medicine garden to future generations. How could he leave the method of collecting it in his Qiankuan bag? Yang Chen could only violently collect this medicine garden space. Chapter 610. The flight was long, and Yang Chen did not care about the time. It was not enough. On the issue of collecting this medicine garden, Yang Chen was still a little hesitant. Cracking it by force could easily make the space unstable, which would lead to the destruction of all the spirit medicines in the medicine garden. If Yang Chen wanted to get ahead in alchemy in this life, it would be useless without medicinal materials, so he attached great importance to medicinal materials. However, relatively speaking, this kind of medicine garden that was already in his hands, especially the medicine garden where the original owner had died, was the least difficult to crack by force. The only thing that was needed was time and cultivation base to erase the mark of the original owner little by little. Speaking of it, this was the least difficult one, as long as there was enough patience. Yang Chen originally planned to use this method, but before starting, Yang Chen suddenly thought of his own medicine garden. After the crazy irrigation of the first wood true essence spiritual solution, now the hidden portal in the medicine garden has become more and more solid, and there are signs of materialization. If he continues to inject the first wood true essence spiritual solution, he believed that he would be able to open the door soon. There was a possibility that people in the mortal world did not know that this kind of spatial magic weapon, especially this kind of medicine garden that could provide biological growth, had the innate characteristic of swallowing the same kind of space. Of course, it was the high-level space that swallowed the low-level space. The grade of the pure bottle medicine garden was so high that Yang Chen was also amazed. The 1,000-year-old medicinal materials were only the first space of the pure bottle medicine garden, and now Yang Chen was about to open the second space. This crystal ball medicine garden, even if the second city master exhausted his whole cultivation base to refine it, it was impossible to be more advanced than an old guy who had ascended. In this case, Yang Chen could directly let the pure bottle medicine garden swallow the crystal ball medicine garden without hurting the medicinal materials inside. Thinking of this, Yang Chen directly threw the crystal ball medicine garden into the pure bottle medicine garden. As soon as the two spaces came into contact with each other, it immediately made the pure bottle medicine garden shake, as if it was about to break. But Yang Chen knew that this was just the impact of the collision of the two spaces, and it would not really hurt the things inside. Even Xiao Tian Yang Chen was not released in the medicine garden. As soon as he entered the space of the medicine garden, the crystal ball suddenly became larger, and became a huge crystal that was almost comparable to the pure bottle medicine garden. At the edge of the pure bottle medicine garden, there was a crystal wall blocking Yang Chen's sight. Yang Chen understood that this huge crystal wall was the restriction of the second city lord's crystal ball medicine garden. Because of this, the two herb gardens could not be merged. Next, Yang Chen began to hold the gourd, carefully controlled the first wood true essence spiritual solution inside, separated a strand and poured it into the medicine garden. This time, Yang Chen was not only watering the Penglai divine wood, but all the first wood were watered. Now with the gourd in hand, Yang Chen could easily control the outflow of the first wood true essence spiritual solution, no longer through the first wood flying sword as an intermediary. The effect was more direct. Other trees were not as slow as the Penglai divine wood. Looking at the trees in the medicine garden, they grew rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye, becoming thicker and taller, withered and flourished. Almost for a while, it was as if they had experienced a spring and autumn. Just after a few days of flying, except for the Penglai divine wood, other trees, including the thunder pomegranate, all increased their age by hundreds of years. Even the most difficult to cultivate thunder pomegranate had almost become an old tree that was close to 1,000 years old. The thunder pomegranate fruit on the tree was already the size of a human head. Of course, the Penglai divine wood must be irrigated. This was the most precious first wood species in Yang Chen's medicine garden. Yang Chen has not stopped cultivating it for a moment. Yang Chen's judgment was correct. In a few days, the portal became clearer and clearer and had begun to have a substance. However, under the touch, it still felt very soft and tender, and there was nothing in the center of the portal. It seemed that when the portal was fully formed, a space passage would appear in the center of the portal, allowing Yang Chen to enter. Since there has been such a change, Yang Chen also understood that his choice was very correct, and he was more insistent. The crystal wall of the crystal ball medicine garden, with the infusion of Yang Chen's first wood true essence, also began to change slowly. In particular, when Yang Chen was pouring it, he first let the first wood true essence flow through the crystal wall, which was almost equivalent to the true essence sacrificial refining. The reason was very simple. Just as the water would grind the stones in the river into smooth pebbles, and finally turn them into fine sand. The first wood true essence spiritual solution was the water flow, and the crystal wall was the stone in the water flow. Under this kind of scouring, Yang Chen did not even have to pay much spiritual power, and it was naturally completed. First, the translucent crystal wall turned into a light green color, and then he watched the crystal wall become more and more green, as if the green had deeply penetrated into the interior of the crystal wall. Next, he felt that the crystal wall began to slowly change from blurred to clear, which was a sign of the crystal wall being refined. The spiritual solution of the first wood true essence was the purest first wood true essence. Even the first wood spirit power in Yang Chen's body was not as strong as this first wood true essence spiritual solution. This most original spiritual power directly scoured the crystal wall. It was simply refining these crystal walls. It was just that the work that needed Yang Chen's painstaking efforts had now become automatic completion of the pure bottle medicine garden and the first wood true essence spiritual solution. Yang Chen felt that these crystal walls were thinning a little bit, and the space of the medicine garden was also nibbling away at the space barrier of the crystal ball medicine garden. Without the support of the master's power, how could the crystal ball medicine garden resist the nibbling away of the pure bottle medicine garden where the spiritual power was full at any time and place? By the end of the 10th day, Yang Chen had discovered that the crystal wall was transparent, and the opposite scene could be vaguely seen. This situation greatly increased Yang Chen's confidence, and he simply accelerated the speed of the first wood true essence spiritual solution. Anyway, no matter how much first wood true essence spiritual solution, as long as it reached the root of the Penglai divine wood, it would all be absorbed, and it would not burst the pure bottle medicine garden. Accelerating the speed could speed up the scouring of the crystal wall. After another 10 days, Yang Chen had already felt that the crystal wall had thinned by half. It seemed that as long as there was the same time, he could completely swallow the entire crystal ball medicine garden and integrate it into the space of the pure bottle medicine garden. The vague portal did not seem to have changed much. It felt like it was only slightly harder to touch than before, but the extent was limited. Yang Chen didn't know how long it would take for this portal to form. He simply no longer paid attention to this side, but fully controlled the first wood true essence spiritual solution and scoured the crystal wall of the crystal ball medicine garden. Chapter 6:11. Kacha, as if something had been broken, after Yang Chen spent another 10 days, the crystal wall of the crystal ball medicine garden suddenly cracked, and then broke into pieces, bursting in all directions. As soon as the broken fragments touched anything in the medicine garden, whether it was herbs, trees, or soil, they all disappeared in an instant, as if they had been integrated into the medicine garden. A relatively unfamiliar force to Yang Chen swept across the entire medicine garden. It was mixed with a huge spiritual power, like a strong wind, blowing from the pure bottle medicine garden to the newly added space. Yang Chen was outside, but his spiritual awareness was always paying attention to the medicine garden. He immediately understood that this was because the two medicine garden spaces had just merged, but the concentration of spiritual power on both sides was obviously different, so such a flow of spiritual power would occur. As for the strange force, Yang Chen had not figured out what was going on. The looming portal in the center of the pure bottle medicine garden suddenly turned into a taotai that saw delicious food. A huge attraction was formed in the portal, and the sudden burst of power was absorbed into it. Immediately afterward, the portal began to change further. The edge of the portal, which was still a little soft, began to harden and really became solid. However, this process was not completed in an instant, but it started from the corner of the portal little by little and slowly spread to other directions of the portal. Seeing this scene, Yang Chen suddenly realized that perhaps this force was the power of space fusion, which was absorbed by the portal, saving Yang Chen the trouble of sacrificial refining. Now that the portal was still slowly taking shape, Yang Chen could not see the final result of the portal for a while. However, with the two medicine garden spaces merged, Yang Chen could carefully count what good medicinal materials he had. The expanded space of the pure bottle medicine garden was almost 100 acres. Compared to the original pure bottle space, it was nearly 1/3 of the area. In this extra area, countless kinds of medicinal materials were planted. Although it was not as neatly categorized as the pure bottle medicine garden, it was not messy. At least the medicinal materials with similar attributes were basically planted in the same area. The level of the crystal ball medicine garden was still relatively low, and its ability to simulate various environments was far less powerful than the purified bottle medicine garden. Some things that require extreme environments, such as the thunder pomegranate, can't be grown. However, even so, Yang Chen still saw many precious medicinal herbs. The profound yang fruit, which was the most abundant in Yang Chen's medicine garden, was also available here, but it was only a few hundred years old, far less than the age in the pure bottle medicine garden. However, there were also some medicinal herbs that Yang Chen's pure bottle medicine garden couldn't compare with. There was at least a large patch of ginseng and knotweed, all of which seemed to be 4,000 or 5,000 years old. Although there were some in Yang Chen's herb garden, and they were quite old, they weren't as strong as this one. What surprised Yang Chen the most was a large number of precious medicinal herbs that only grew in the demonic beast plane. These herbs were very precious to the demon clan. Very few demon clan members would trade them with cultivators after harvesting them. Many of Yang Chen had only heard of them, but he had never seen them. He didn't expect that there would be such a large batch in the medicine garden of the Second City Lord. To be honest, the spirit medicine that could make the Second City Lord look at it in this medicine garden, any one of them could make people fight for it. The vision of a master of the Deshang stage was by no means an undeserved reputation. There were several kinds of medicinal herbs that made Yang Chen immediately remember a kind of medicinal pill that he had accidentally seen from the monster race's pill recipe. These medicinal herbs were enough for Yang Chen to refine a batch of medicinal pills that were called inner sensing pills by the monster race. The monster race's inner sensing pill, after taking it, could increase the senses of the user's whole body by 10 times. Whether it was the flow of the monster power or the various blood and qi in the body, the user could clearly perceive it. The senses were enhanced by 10 times, so that in the user's feeling, the various blood and qi circulation and the monster power and spirit power circulation were slowed down by 10 points, so that the user could have a further understanding of their own situation. This kind of medicinal pill that allowed him to thoroughly understand his own body's blood and monster power and spirit power circulation could effectively improve his perception of his current realm. In some cases, it had the same effect as the questioning inner heart pill. However, the material requirements of the questioning inner heart pill were too high, at least 10,000 years old. In contrast, the inner sensing pill was much simpler. As long as it was 1,000 years old, it could basically be satisfied. Basically, the inner sensing pill only enhanced the senses, but the questioning inner heart pill could also calm the mind and prevent the emergence of the heart devil. In terms of effect, the inner sensing pill was an understanding of the body and cultivation base of the user, while the questioning inner heart pill focused on the understanding and thinking of the realm. Compared with the questioning inner heart pill, the inner sensing pill basically had no meaning for the masters of the Deshang stage. At the Deshang stage, the cultivator was already familiar with his own body and spirit power. If he wanted to improve, he could only improve his state of mind. Only cultivators below the Deshang stage needed the inner sensing pill. There was also a shortcoming of the inner sensing pill, that was because the sensory feeling was magnified 10 times, so in addition to the ones that he wanted to understand, the other tastes were magnified 10 times. Whether it was pain or itch or cold or hot, it was the same. After taking the medicine, during the period of the effect of the medicine, even if it was a gentle touch by others, it would make the user feel extreme pain. The friction between the clothes on the body and the skin could be regarded as torture. As for the changes in the surrounding heat and cold, it allowed people to experience the taste of extreme weather in a short period of time. But even with this side effect, the inner sensing pill had great benefits for the cultivator. If they entered the state of combat training after taking the medicine, and they could still fight normally under this degree of pain, basically some of the injuries in the battle could no longer affect the cultivator. This was not only an understanding of their own body, but also a tempering of their own will. The benefits were self-evident. However, this inner sensing pill required some of the monster race's specialty elixirs to be refined. Although it was not as precious as the 10,000 years old elixirs, it was also extremely rare. Even in the memory of his previous life, among the cultivators in the mortal world, no one had ever owned it. At present, the pill recipe and medicinal materials were all available, and Yang Chen himself was an alchemy master, which also meant that the inner sensing pill was no longer a patent of some monster race masters. At least the people around Yang Chen also had the opportunity to take it. The monster race did not have two strong alchemy masters, so the inner sensing pill was usually only a first-grade refining. Yang Chen was now curious about what would happen if he could refine the second-grade inner sensing pill. What would be the effect after taking it? Chapter 6:12. However, at this time, Yang Chen had no time to consider what the effect of the second-grade inner sensing pill was, because the portal of the Pure Bottle Medicine Garden had undergone a complete qualitative change at this moment. Perhaps it was precisely because of the space energy produced by the fusion of the space that after the portal was absorbed, it really reached the standard of qualitative change. Now, the looming portal of the Pure Bottle Medicine Garden had really stood in the middle of the medicine garden. The material of the portal was neither gold nor jade. The white door frame had no seam and there was a beautiful engraved pattern on it. The center of the door frame was dark and nothing could be seen. Whether it was from the front or the back of the door frame, it was the same, or there was no front or back at all. Where this dark portal led to, it was estimated that no one knew except the Immortal who had been killed by Yang Chen. Yang Chen directly put away the shuttle, then found a safe place and entered the medicine garden. Standing in front of the portal, Yang Chen was still hesitating whether to go in or not. If this was because he entered a portal in his own medicine garden and then he couldn't get out, it would be a big joke. The first floor of the medicine garden had the memory of his previous life, so Yang Chen was very relieved. However, now Yang Chen was not sure whether the second floor of the medicine garden, left by the Immortal who was killed by him, was a trap or a greater benefit. While hesitating, Xiao Tian, who had been cruising and playing in the medicine garden, suddenly twisted his body and slammed into the dark portal. Yang Chen didn't even have time to stop it. He saw a circle of ripples on the black portal, and then the figure of Xiao Tian disappeared without a trace. Xiao Tian was an important partner of Yang Chen. Although it was only discovered by accident, Yang Chen did cultivate Xiao Tian as his lifeblood. When he saw that Xiao Tian actually rushed in, he could no longer care about anything else. He took a step forward and rushed into the portal. In front of him was black, but it immediately became normal, and then Yang Chen immediately saw a familiar scene. He found himself in a huge space once again. The first thing that entered his eyes was a neat and tidy medicinal field. With just a casual glance, Yang Chen could tell that these were all elixirs that were at least 10,000 years old. Ginseng, Polygonum multiflorum, and other medicinal herbs that people in the secular world usually thought were good things grew almost like crops here. People who didn't know their stuff would definitely think that the ginseng field not far away was planted with carrot. Who would have thought that they were all 10,000-year-old ginseng with leaves exceeding the 10th grade? Not to mention the vermilion fruit, luohan bead, and huanyang grass. Any one of them was a 10,000-year-old spirit herb that could drive anyone crazy. Here, they were all planted neatly, as if they were soldiers waiting for inspection. You know, in his previous life, Yang Chen only found a 10,000-year-old vermilion fruit, which made Yang Lan kill the young palace master and blame it on Yang Chen. But at this moment there were simply as many of these things as one wanted. How could one see any value in them? The figure of Xiao Tian rushed over and coiled on Yang Chen's arm. Seeing that Xiao Tian was fine, Yang Chen was also relieved. Turning around and glancing behind him, the dark door was still there, which also made Yang Chen feel at ease. Just as he was about to take a closer look at the things here, Xiao Tian suddenly screamed in one direction. Yang Chen was stunned and his eyes immediately looked in that direction. The slave greets the master. In the direction of Xiao Tian's roar, two faint figures suddenly appeared, but they were the phantoms of two girls with two buns. The two figures were bowing to Yang Chen at this moment, but their bodies seemed to be trembling uncontrollably. In the medicine garden, this was his own territory. Yang Chen's body entered. Naturally, he would not use his spiritual awareness to explore. At first, he didn't find the two girls. It was Xiao Tian's reminder that Yang Chen noticed. With a sweep of his spiritual awareness, Yang Chen suddenly understood that these two girls were not real people, but the spirit of the medicine garden. It was estimated that this was also the reason why Xiao Tian would desperately rush in from the outside. This magic weapon spirit itself was Xiao Tian's favorite food. It was also a very normal thing for the two girls to tremble in front of Xiao Tian. However, it was also because of the deterrence of Xiao Tian that the two girls would appear to greet the master. Otherwise, if Yang Chen didn't pay attention, maybe the two spirits would have been hidden until the day he found out. Please forgive the master. The two spirit girls seemed to have the same mind, and even their voices were in unison. When Yang Chen came in, they didn't show up. Naturally, they didn't treat Yang Chen as the real master. Being forced out by Xiao Tian, of course, they had to apologize to Yang Chen. However, when Yang Chen's powerful spiritual awareness swept over their shadows, the two spirits felt the huge pressure of Yang Chen, almost crawling on the ground and didn't dare to get up again. With this sweep of his spiritual awareness, Yang Chen immediately discovered that the two girls turned out to be Yin and Yang wood attribute. No wonder there would be two spirits, first wood and second wood. It just happened to contain all the growing wood medicinal materials in the medicine garden. Yin and Yang complemented each other. No wonder all the medicinal materials in this medicine garden were growing very vigorously, but there was a special master taking care of them. Shortly after the spiritual awareness touched the two women, Yang Chen soon received two thoughts, but it was the two girls. Yang Chen's heart moved, the beast-controlling secret art was released, and these two thoughts were clearer. At the same time, two small light balls also flew out from the top of the two girls' heads and flew in front of Yang Chen. This scene was very familiar to Yang Chen. This was a trace of the life source monster soul. The two girls offered their life source monster soul, plus the thoughts that were transmitted. It was a posture of recognizing the master. Yang Chen did not hesitate at all and directly accepted the life source monster soul of the two girls. As soon as the monster soul entered Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, Yang Chen knew the true body of the two girls. The one on the left, wearing light green clothes, was a blue jade vine that specialized in detoxifying all kinds of poisons. The one on the right, wearing pink clothes, was a peach tree. It was easy to distinguish first wood and second wood. Slave Zhu Abai greets the master. Yang Chen accepted the life source monster soul, and the two women looked happy. Then they opened their mouths again, and this time even their names were reported. Get up! Yang Chen commanded and let the two women get up. After standing up, Yang Chen discovered that he didn't know if the two women were intentional or it was like this. The two women looked exactly the same. However, he didn't know how the two women became tool spirit. Even if they stood up, they still looked like nothingness, as if they had no substance at all. With a move in his heart, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness directly penetrated into the life source monster soul of the two women in his sea of consciousness. In just a moment, the figures of the two women seemed to solidify a lot. Chapter 6:13. With the infusion of Yang Chen's powerful spiritual awareness, the bodies of the two women became more and more solid. Looking at it again, it was no longer a phantom, but a solid body. Thank you, Master. Zhu and Bai certainly felt the changes in their bodies, and they bowed to Yang Chen again. Then Zhu said, Master, the maids don't need Master to consume any more spiritual awareness, as long as Master adds some spiritual power. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was already at the peak of the early Deshang stage, and it was unreasonably condensed. Just now, even 1 or 2% of it was not used, but the two women could no longer bear it. With the replenishment of spiritual power, Yang Chen was even more relaxed. Zhu belonged to the first wood. He directly controlled the extremely small trace of the first wood true essence in the gourd and sent it into Zhu's body. Suddenly, Zhu seemed to have eaten a big tonic, her face quickly turned red, and then her body changed between a young girl and a peach tree countless times, and finally became a young girl again. With this change, Zhu looked no different from a real person. Bai next to her looked curious and envious. Of course, Yang Chen would not favor one over the other. With a wave of his hand, a second wood spirit power was also sent into Bai's body. Compared with the first wood true essence, the spiritual power of the blood phantom vine was not enough. It was not the purest, but for Bai it was already a good nourishment. However, the second wood spirit power had not yet condensed, and it took Yang Chen a lot of effort to complete the infusion of spiritual power. My second wood spirit power is still a little short. When I find the second wood true essence later, I will replenish your spiritual power again. Although the spiritual power had been replenished, compared with Zhu, Bai still lacked some of the most fundamental things in her aura. Yang Chen knew why, so he put down the words first. Both Zhu and Bai had handed over their life source monster souls to him, and their life and death were in the hands of Yang Chen. This was definitely his own people. Yang Chen would certainly not be stingy. Thank you, Master. Zhu and Bai thanked Yang Chen again. Because of the connection with Yang Chen, Xiao Tian also understood that the two spirit girls could not move their mouths and obediently shrank on Yang Chen's arm. The two women were no longer so afraid, and their bodies stopped trembling. A lot of thoughts were transmitted from the original monster soul, and Yang Chen soon understood the origins of the two women. Zhu and Bai were originally the first two plants transplanted into the medicine garden by the original owner of the medicine garden. They were originally spirit plants that were over 10,000 years old. Because they were the oldest in the medicine garden, they were nurtured by the original owner of the medicine garden. Before the original owner of the medicine garden ascended, Zhu and Bai already had consciousness. However, he had only just awakened his spiritual wisdom and was far from becoming a demon. In fact, in the medicine garden, there were few medicinal materials that would develop spiritual wisdom. This kind of pure artificial spiritual power nourishment was impossible to turn the medicinal materials in the medicine garden into a demon. The reason why the two women would have consciousness was that they were outside, nourished by the spirit of heaven and earth, and tempered by the essence of the sun and the moon, and they already had the qualifications to become a demon. Under the nourishment of the huge spiritual power of the medicine garden, they gradually opened their spiritual wisdom. However, it was obvious that the original owner of the medicine garden did not want to have two evildoers in his own medicine garden, so it was easy to extract their monster souls and refine them together with the medicine garden, becoming the spirit of the medicine garden's bottle. Of course, because their bodies were in the medicine garden, the two tool spirits did not suffer much damage. As a result, a Zhu and a Bai became the people responsible for taking care of all the medicinal materials in the medicine garden, until the original owner ascended and closed the second layer of the medicine garden, and also sealed the two women in it. If the new owner of the medicine garden could not open the second layer of the medicine garden, in the subconscious of the original owner, there was no way to become the owner of the medicine garden. Therefore, until Yang Chen entered the second layer of the medicine garden, a Zhu and a Bai did not and could not take the initiative to establish a master-servant relationship with Yang Chen. When Yang Chen came in, it was not that the two women did not want to communicate with Yang Chen, but because the first one to come in was Xiao Tian, and Yazi was almost the natural enemy of the tool spirits. The two women were scared on the spot and did not dare to move. If it weren't for the appearance of Yang Chen, the two women would not dare to show up at all. Understanding the origin, Yang Chen naturally would not have any complaints about the two women. Now that the two women had completely recognized him as their master, Yang Chen had two more experts who could take care of the medicinal materials. In the future, the medicinal materials in the medicine garden would only grow better and better, and Yang Chen could not help but be happy. Because of the existence of a Zhu and a Bai, Yang Chen was now almost clear about the medicinal materials in the second layer of the medicine garden. Even with the mentality of a great principal golden immortal, when Yang Chen really understood what the medicinal materials in the medicine garden were, he was still shocked and couldn't believe it. The second layer of the medicine garden was much larger than the first layer, almost 1,000 miles in radius. Relatively speaking, it was almost a complete small world. Near the portal, there were only the most common elixirs, which were planted by the two women as crops. The ones that really needed all kinds of special environments were still far away. From a Zhu and a Bai, Yang Chen soon knew what was in this medicine garden. Basically, it could be said that as long as the medicinal materials needed in the mortal world, there were almost all of them here. Not only those advanced ones, but even some of the herbs used by ordinary people in the mortal world were all here. However, no matter how ordinary it was, the ordinary herbs that have been carefully cared for tens of thousands of years have also become treasures. In addition to those special things, such as medicinal materials such as gold and stone, or things such as monster cores and devil spirits, as long as it was the medicinal materials needed for medicinal pills in the mortal world, Yang Chen had almost all of them, and all of them were valuable 10,000-years-old elixirs. Perhaps tens of thousands of years ago, these medicinal materials were very ordinary and not worth mentioning, so the immortal did not take the medicine garden with him when he ascended, but left an opportunity for the younger generation. Who could have thought that after tens of thousands of years, these ordinary things would become such rare treasures? Time can make many things decay, but it can also make many things extraordinary, and these tens of thousands of years-old elixirs that have been carefully cared for were part of it. The medicine garden is well taken care of. Yang Chen really praised. In the first layer of the medicine garden, Yang Chen did not carefully plan it. What it was originally was still what it was now. With a Zhu and a Bai, he just let them take care of it. A Zhu and a Bai could also pass through the portal. When they followed Yang Chen to the first layer of the medicine garden outside, a Bai first saw a lot of 10,000-years-old elixirs there, as well as the blood phantom vine that had just recovered its vitality. As for Azhu, she stared directly at the Penglai divine wood forest, opened her mouth wide, moved a few times, and couldn't say anything. Chapter 6:14. As the first wood tool spirit of the medicine garden, at least in the understanding of trees such as the first wood, Azhu also had a considerable eyesight. However, when she saw the Penglai divine woods forest, she was still shocked by Yang Chen's big move. Because of the closure of the second layer of the medicine garden, Azhu and Bai did not know that many new species were planted in the first layer. However, after all, both women were tool spirit. As soon as they came to the first layer, they almost immediately knew what was planted here. The original medicinal herbs were basically the seeds thrown out by Azhu and Bai thousands of years ago. Because of the relationship of the medicine garden, countless thousand-year-old medicinal herbs have been successfully cultivated. Basically, what was there, the two women were probably clear. But now there were so many more things. The 10,000-year spirit medicine was still ordinary. In the second layer, there were medicinal herbs that were tens of thousands of years old. However, the Penglai divine wood and the blood phantom vine were not common. In particular, the Penglai divine wood was simply the best of the best. This was already the purest first wood aura that could be heard in the mortal world. After standing for a long time, Azhu reacted. As soon as she woke up, she immediately rushed directly into the Penglai divine wood forest. Feeling the pure first wood aura, she was overjoyed, as if she had gotten something she loved. Although the first wood true essence was the purest first wood aura, relatively speaking, Azhu preferred the Penglai divine wood, a plant with a body. As a tool spirit, she shuttled through the Penglai divine wood forest, like a happy deer. Bai next to her also had some curious things. She was now squatting in front of the blood phantom vine, curiously staring at the blood phantom vine up and down. Her body was a blue jade vine, which was a natural nemesis for the poisonous blood phantom vine. If this blood phantom vine was not planted by her master, maybe she would have already used her body to remove the poison of the blood phantom vine. Yang Chen did not speak. Comparing Azhu and Bai's familiarity with plants, it was simply showing off in front of an expert. The two tool spirits had a plant body, and after being sacrificially refined by the tool spirit, they almost had an instinct to communicate with plants. Although the various spirit medicines were not necessarily intelligent, Azhu and Bai could understand the needs of the plants themselves through contact with the plant body. This would also allow the two women to take better care of the various spirit herbs. In this regard, Azhu and Bai were definitely the most competent planting masters. No matter what plants were handed over to them, they would know how to cultivate them. The fact that none of the spirit herbs in the second layer of the medicine garden had withered was proof of this. Seeing that Azhu had now stopped shuttling through the Penglai divine woods, but changed to holding the Penglai divine woods one by one, putting her small head on the trunk of each Penglai divine wood, as if listening to something. Azhu's strange behavior seemed that Bai didn't care at all. After watching the blood phantom vine alone for a while, she began to work. As an artifact spirit, it had almost the same dominance as the owner of the herb garden. Soon, all the 10,000 years elixir transplanted later disappeared directly, and at the same time, Bai's figure also disappeared in front of Yang Chen. However, Yang Chen knew that Bai had already taken these elixirs into the second layer space, where it was more suitable for the growth of these elixirs. Azhu was still inspecting the Penglai divine woods one by one, but Bai's work had been completed, and her figure appeared in front of Yang Chen in the first layer space. Next, Bai was interested in the extra ocean around the space. Since Yang Chen sacrificially refined it with the 10th water true essence, there was an extra ocean around the herb garden space. Although there were no marine elixirs growing in it, it already had a growth environment. It had to be said that even if Yang Chen had the pill recipe in his memory, plus the pill recipe learned in this life, all the raw materials used in the medicinal pills were not as good as the medicinal herbs in the sea. It seemed that it was easy for everyone to ignore some of the materials on the seabed, but ordinary people would use some ordinary marine products such as sea cucumbers and fur seals that were easy to catch as medicine. Abai stood by the sea of the herb garden and soon understood what these were. With a wave of her little hand, most of the ocean disappeared without a trace. In Yang Chen's mind, a scene soon appeared. In the second layer space of the herb garden, the edge of the space also expanded, turning into a small ocean. It seemed that after the sacrificial refining of the 10th water true secret art, even the second layer space began to grow larger. Next, Abai began to study the soil of the first layer of the herb garden. This was the soil that had been sacrificially refined by the 5th earth true essence. Although the original soil was already very fertile, there was no such pure 5th earth chi after all. Feeling this vigorous aura, Abai's little face was full of joy. Looking at Abai's appearance, she still wanted to move the soil that had been sacrificially refined by the 5th earth true essence into the second layer space. Yang Chen directly stopped her. For Yang Chen's obstruction, Abai looked very incomprehensible. Her face was full of grievances. Standing in front of Yang Chen, she was very unhappy. Don't worry, after a Zhu side is done, I will use the 5th earth true essence, 7th metal true essence, 1st wood true essence, and 10th water true essence to sacrificial refine the second layer of the herb garden. Yang Chen explained with a smile. Hearing Yang Chen's explanation, Abai turned from annoyance to joy, and a happy smile appeared on her face. Of course, Yang Chen was even happier. With a Zhu and Abai, not only could he more thoroughly master the pure bottle herb garden, but he also had 2 more good hands to take care of the elixirs in the herb garden. This kind of thing couldn't be found with a lantern. A Zhu and a Abai clearly became stronger with the years to reach this point. If a Zhu and a Abai had such ability before the original owner ascended, it was estimated that the guy would have ascended with the pure bottle herb garden. Now it was all cheap to Yang Chen. A Zhu finally reached the last Penglai divine wood, clinging to the huge trunk, but her hands couldn't hold it. Her little face clung to the trunk, her face was dignified, and it took a long time before she reluctantly let go. Master! Seeing that Yang Chen had been watching, a Zhu was a little surprised. She quickly came over and rushed to Yang Chen with a curtsy. Do you like these Penglai divine woods? Yang Chen asked with a smile. A Zhu nodded heavily and answered affirmatively. But soon, there was some hesitation. It seemed that there was something she didn't dare to say. What's wrong? Did I take care of it wrong? Yang Chen asked in confusion. If these Penglai divine woods were really destroyed because of him, it would be a great sin. Master, most of these Penglai divine woods seem to have some spiritual wisdom. A Zhu didn't speak, but when she spoke, it directly shocked Yang Chen.